Now an investigation to determine why a photo of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis ended up on the phone of Thomas Crooks. He's the man investigators say tried to kill former President Trump. Good day's Mark Tigner is live at the Fulton County Courthouse with more on this developing story. Mark, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Buck. Certainly just concerning and disturbing, to say the least. This issue now being looked at by the feds.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Former President Donald Trump recounts the moments a would-be assassin tried to take his life. Now CNN reports a photo of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis was found on the suspected shooter Thomas Crooks's phone. The information came out in a Secret Service FBI briefing. Crooks's motive for the assassination attempt isn't known. Law enforcement also found photos of former President Trump, President Biden, House Speaker Mike Johnson, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and other political leaders. All the photos appear to have been downloaded from the internet and weren't accompanied with any threats or messages. It was also revealed Crooks conducted online searches of Trump campaign events, as well as both the Republican and Democratic national conventions.
I want to make sure that we stay safe.
Willis has spoken about the threat she's faced while investigating President Trump. She has a full-time security detail and had to move out of her house.
All the typical racial slurs that you can imagine. They're very grotesque things.
Last year, a man from Alabama was indicted in federal court here in Atlanta for allegedly making threats against Willis, as well as Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labat. Reporting live from the Fulton County Courthouse in downtown, I'm Mark Tigner for Good Day Atlanta. Buck, back to you.
All right, Mark, thank you. Now,
pleading with Fani's office to explain how this guy, who as you can see is in a wheelchair, is a paraplegic, his legs do not work, how he could be charged with a crime of kicking a door down and assaulting a woman. That's the allegation from a crazy person. He's now been charged with a crime. He's being abused. His attorney, Andrew Fleischman, is trying to call some attention to this for good reason. When she's not sleeping with her special counsel, when she's not abusing disabled people, she's also out at NAACP conferences calling people who are attacking her scared little boys. And so we'll hear back more from Fani. But here's this ridiculous scandal and travesty. Says Andrew Fleischman. He is an attorney. He works on behalf of the wrongfully and accused and unfairly convicted. And here's what he says. So my client is a paraplegic. All right. One day, a Fulton County Police Department officer asked him to come down and answer a few questions. A woman came into the police department and said he kicked her door down and assaulted her. And they were calling him down to arrest him, not to talk to him. He came down to the station. They arrested him. They said, sorry, sir, you can't kick down a door. That's illegal in this jurisdiction. So the client said, well, I actually didn't kick the door down, had some pretty good objections.
I'm going to be doing this one on Fani Willis and Letitia James, the two that are now getting some karma coming back on them. I'm sorry about the lighting. The sun's kind of bright on that side. Maybe I'll pull that down in a minute. So anyways, let me go to the next one I have saved here. I put some of them up on my huge tube, so I'll go back to the page and let's use this one next. Enlarge that.
Pleading with Fani's office to explain how this guy, who as you can see is in a...
Must be this one. Oh, I think I was going to play this one next, actually. Here we go.
And we are back, and we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, people. You know that it helps us out, and of course, it helps you because for this content for you. So I hope that is enough. I mean, she just can't stay out of the news, y'all. You know, Letitia James is in the news, but Fani doesn't like for these other people, these other Trump foes to steal her spotlight. So Fani has to jump back in the news. And what we have right now is that the House Judiciary Committee presses Fulton DA's office for records and warns of action. So while your girl Letitia is the subject of a potential criminal investigation, it looks like she's being investigated for mortgage fraud. Your girl Fani is also being investigated by the United States House of Representatives. Let's take a look. The House Judiciary Committee, led by Representative Jim Jordan out of Ohio, is escalating its ongoing investigation into what it calls politically motivated prosecutions, focusing on Fulton County District Attorney's Office and its criminal case against President Donald Trump. Now, this article says that the committee announced Thursday that it continues to seek testimony and documents from 4 senior employees of District Attorney Fani Willis's office, including Chief Senior District Attorney Donald Wakeford. This marks the latest chapter in an inquiry that began in December 2023, when the committee opened its probe into the Georgia election interference case and Willis's alleged coordination. Now, that word coordination, sometimes people say collusion, okay? Coordination / collusion with the now defunct January 6th Select Committee. The committee's interest centers on a December 17, 2021 letter from Willis to then January 6th committee chairman, Representative Bernie Thompson, in which she reportedly requested access to transcripts, emails, and travel records. Members of her office later traveled to D.C. Now, if y'all remember, Nathan Wade said he went to D.C. You know, that's her boyfriend that she was paying out of the public coffers. And then in turn, I shouldn't say in turn. And then also he was buying her gifts and taking her on trips, supposedly with his own money, but who knows where the money came from, right? I mean, the money at that point may have been fungible and commingled. But anyway, members of her office later traveled to D.C. at taxpayer expense to meet with committee staff and review non-public materials, according to testimony from FCDAO Assistant DA Dexter Bond. Y'all remember Dexter Bond? If y'all don't know who Dexter Bond is, y'all should look him up. Y'all want a good laugh? That guy, just look him up. So Chairman Jordan and others argue that such coordination raises questions about the impartiality of the case against Trump and warrants federal legislative scrutiny. Now, y'all, the case against Trump is pretty much over at this point. If you remember, Fani and her entire office were taken off of that case because of the appearance of impropriety, where she had a boyfriend that she hired as special counsel. Again, we said already that was Nathan Wade. So she's been taken off the case. The case is pretty much dead at this point, but it looks like Jim Jordan wants to continue to investigate and see how it all came to be, and maybe if Fani and her office did anything inappropriate. Now we talked about this previously, y'all. Fani is facing investigation from different angles. Jim Jordan and the United States House of Representatives is one angle. She also is facing inquiry by her own state Senate that has subpoenaed her to testify and said that if she does not come to testify, now remember, previously she did not testify, and said if she does not come to testify that they may actually lock her up. She's been ordered to pay thousands of dollars to different organizations for failing to do her job properly. So Fani she's just not having an easy go of it. It seems like much of this is due to her own actions and decision making, though. So now what we're going to do is run into a previous report so that you can get more context about this United States House of Representatives request for information. And you're going to see that Fani has already said she's telling her people not to comply. She's telling her people, or we could say to comply in just a limited way. Let's take a look. It says, read the letter from Fani T. Willis to Representative Jim Jordan, y'all. That's exactly what we're about to do right now. Now, as you may remember, y'all, Fani Willis she's under scrutiny by her own people in Georgia who would like to talk to her about the relationship she had with Nathan Wade while she pursued Donald Trump. Nathan Wade being a special prosecutor that she hired and paid out of the public coffers, while at the same time getting it on with him behind the scenes. And so now people in the United States Congress, particularly Representative Jim Jordan, he'd also like to have a word with Fani Willis and people from her office, basically around the same kind of thing. He would like to know about their investigation into Donald Trump. Now, just yesterday, I said, Fani has been laying low, y'all. Maybe she can just lay low, let it blow over. I thought she was laying low. I haven't seen anybody else talking about this, y'all. This is from the New York Times. This is the letter that Fani wrote back to Representative. This is United States Congressman Jim Jordan. Y'all, I thought Fani was going to take the path of, let me just play nice, but let's read through this letter, y'all. We're going to read through the whole letter. It's not that long. I'm just going to get right into it, and we'll see what Fani said to Representative Jim Jordan. Dear Mr. Jordan, yet again, I am writing you in my official capacity as District Attorney of Fulton County and on behalf of my office regarding requests made by the House Judiciary Committee to several Fulton County employees asking for documents and testimony related to their work for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. Over the course of several years now, I have explained to you that the core of your requests, information about an active criminal investigation, threatens the integrity of an ongoing criminal matter, ignores centuries of precedent about the limits of congressional power, and tramples over foundational principles of state sovereignty and federalism. Let us speak plainly, Mr. Jordan. Your so-called, quote, investigation, end quote, into the office's contacts with the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol has never been anything more than a dangerous attempt performed at the behest of those under investigation to obstruct our office from an ongoing criminal prosecution and investigations. The case this office brought was after months of careful deliberation and investigation by my office and 2 grand juries impaneled under Georgia law. The federal government has no right to obstruct state and local investigations and prosecutions because you want to appease defendants whom a grand jury has found probable cause to indict by interfering in their ongoing prosecution. With regard to the document requests, you have asked FCDA employees to produce documents to you that the office and I have already explained that we cannot disclose because we must avoid any actions that could potentially compromise an ongoing investigation and prosecution by this office. As I wrote to you a few weeks ago, the communications you are seeking, to the extent they exist, are directly related to Fulton County's ongoing investigation of several individuals pursuant to Georgia criminal statutes. These individuals were properly investigated and indicted by a grand jury consistent with Georgia criminal procedure. Prosecution of these charges is ongoing. Your requests also exceed the limits of congressional authority and violate core constitutional principles of separation of powers, state sovereignty, and federalism as set forth in my prior letters. At its core, you seek documents and information revealing how attorneys in my office conducted an investigation that ultimately led to a grand jury indictment. Any such documents are protected from disclosure by attorney-client privilege, work product privilege, and other common law protections. As I have already noted in a prior letter to you, the preservation of the secrecy of grand jury proceedings is a well-recognized principle in Georgia, as well as in the federal legal system. Moreover, requests for documents regarding my office's preparation for grand jury proceedings cut to the core of the deliberative process privilege, which generally protects pre-decisional documents generated by government agencies as they seek to advance their missions. FCDA employees are not permitted to waive privilege over information that they obtained as part of their work for FCDA. Accordingly, I have instructed FCDA staff not to provide your committee with any documents that remain in the custody of the office to which the office and I have already asserted privilege and have determined that we cannot produce. Furthermore, as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, you do not need to ask attorneys in Georgia to obtain potential communications with other congressional committees. The records of the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol remain with the House of Representatives and within the House's access and control. Members of the Select Committee are your colleagues, and some still work in the same building as you. But instead, you have chosen to focus a multi-year inquiry on the actions of our office. Your only goal is to stop the pursuit of criminal justice by our office by targeting our employees, honorable public servants, and heroic Americans who, like me, should be like I, who, like me, have put themselves at risk to defend our democracy. Now, at the pinnacle of power, you are harassing them with frivolous requests instead of using your position to better our communities. It also bears mention that your latest request also makes clear that you were never interested in obtaining information about the FCDA's use of federal funds, as you have previously asserted. That line of inquiry was nothing more than a smokescreen designed to harass this office and distract from our focus on our core prosecutorial duties. Were you truly interested in ferreting out prosecutorial misconduct and corruption, you would stop wasting taxpayer money on your baseless pursuit of my office and instead turn your attention to the Trump administration's Justice Department.
Talk about someone wasting money,
the acting U.S. Attorney
stealing
for
money.
the Southern District of New York, Danielle Sassoon, received a corrupt quid pro quo involving acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove, who ordered the SDNY to dismiss charges without prejudice against New York City's mayor. As you are no doubt aware, Ms. Sassoon, along with at least 6 other senior level Justice Department officials, resigned rather than carry out the unlawful order. Where's your outrage about this perversion of justice? For my entire tenure as District Attorney of Fulton County, I have sought to honor my oath to the people of Georgia and to defend our shared democracy, which emerged after centuries of racist violence and systemic oppression of Black, Brown, and Native peoples, women, religious minorities, LGBTQ plus people, and many others. Come what may, I will not stop defending my vision of a diverse, equitable, and inclusive society governed not by tyrants, but by rule of law. Accordingly, I have told my staff that they are allowed to speak with you voluntarily about matters that are not covered by privileges held by the office. Consistent with our direction to Attorney Nathan Wade, whom you have already interviewed, the FCDA will not waive any applicable legal protections or privileges.
You knew Fani Willis would go there
relating to its work on ongoing criminal matters, including our effort to hold individuals accountable for their role in an attempted coup. Sir, in closing, let me suggest you review the oath you swore to as a member of Congress, as required of you by Article 6 of the Constitution. That oath requires you to quote, support, and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and, quote, bear true faith and allegiance to that Constitution. You are confused. Do you understand your oath, responsibilities, and duties? That oath is not to those who commit crimes while abusing their power by seeking to undermine the very Constitution you are sworn to defend. Rather than honor and uphold the oath you took, you have chosen to expend your time attempting to bully me, which is a complete waste of your time. Might I suggest that instead of attempting to disrupt this office's work protecting the people of Fulton County, that you celebrate Black History Month by visiting children in your district to teach them about the many contributions African Americans have made to this country, including those who have advanced democracy by successfully advocating that this nation live up to the ideals that everyone is equal before the law and everyone has the right to have their voice heard through exercising their right to vote. That would be a much more productive use of your time. Wow. Y'all,
I mean, was going there.
Whoa. Woo. Y'all, I saw this. I literally just read it now for the first time. All right. And I feel like she Fani chose war, y'all. She selected war. I said yesterday, Fani seems like she laying low. I kind of was giving her a compliment. Nope, she wasn't laying low. She was just planning her attack. All right, y'all. So I'd like to know what y'all think about this. Of course, I would like for you to leave a comment down below. Where do you think this is going to go? Do you think
I hope it leads to her going to jail big time. Totally deserves it. And he didn't get into. There's a lot of meetings that she had with the White House with Biden, Sleepy Joe back then, and I'd like to find out all the records on that. That's really what they don't want to let out, you know. So, okay, I'm going to play this Pam Bondi going after Fani Willis here. It's pretty good. Let me see if I can bring it up kind of quick here.
A large retail
sorry
store
about
just
that. I'll enlarge it a while. Skip it.
In D.C., tension
This
was
is
at
pretty
an
good,
all-time
actually.
high.
This guy
The
breaks it
political
down.
climate had grown increasingly hostile, and the
I'll get
battle for
into
power had
Letitia James
intensified.
later. Both of them
Pam
are
Bondi, the
same
United
boat.
States Attorney General under President Donald Trump, had been dealing with countless legal challenges over the past few years, but nothing like the one she was about to face. Fani Willis, the district attorney of Fulton County, Georgia, had recently made headlines when she announced charges against several high-profile figures, including President Trump. These charges were centered around accusations of quid pro quo, a classic move in the political game where one party allegedly offers something in exchange for political favor. The media had eagerly latched onto the narrative, pushing the story into the spotlight. But Pam Bondi wasn't one to be intimidated easily. As one of the most vocal defenders of President Trump, she had built a reputation for standing firm against what she viewed as politically motivated attacks. And this latest move by Fani Willis? It was no different in her eyes. The confrontation began when Fani Willis, in a highly publicized press conference, boldly accused Pam Bondi of being complicit in a scheme involving quid pro quo. She suggested that Bondi, acting under the direction of President Trump, had used her position to influence legal proceedings for political gain. The press loved it. Headlines screamed about the accusation, painting Bondi as part of a deep-seated conspiracy to manipulate the justice system. Bondi, however, wasn't about to let the charges stand without a fight. Within hours of Willis's press conference, Bondi issued a statement. "These accusations are baseless," she declared, her voice unwavering. "This is nothing but a politically motivated attack against me and the administration I serve. I will not be bullied into submission." It didn't take long for the two women to come face to face in a public showdown. The stage was set for what promised to be a battle of words that would leave no room for doubt about where their loyalties lay. Pam Bondi, wearing a sharp, professional suit, stood confidently at the podium. Her piercing blue eyes scanned the room full of reporters, and she knew this moment was critical. She had to make it clear that she wasn't going to let Fani Willis's accusations tarnish her reputation or the reputation of President Trump. "Fani Willis has made some serious allegations against me," Bondi began, her voice calm but filled with determination. "She claims that I was involved in a quid pro quo scheme. But let me tell you something, there is absolutely no truth to that. This is a deliberate attempt to attack the integrity of our legal system." The reporters in the room were hanging on her every word, knowing that this was about to get intense. Bondi paused for a moment before continuing. "Ms. Willis has based her entire case on flimsy accusations and hearsay," she said. "She has no hard evidence, no concrete proof, just a desire to paint me and the president as criminals. This is nothing more than an attempt to undermine the work we've been doing for the American people." At that moment, the tension in the room was palpable. Bondi's words had struck a nerve, and many of the reporters were starting to doubt the strength of the charges against her. But just as Bondi thought she had gained the upper hand, a familiar voice interrupted. Fani Willis had entered the room, her presence commanding attention. She was ready to fight fire with fire. The district attorney of Fulton County wasted no time addressing the press. Pam Bondi can deny all she wants, but the evidence is there, Willis said, her tone sharp and confident. We have witnesses, we have documents, and we have a case. If Pam Bondi thinks she can escape responsibility just by making empty statements, she's mistaken. The battle lines had been drawn. The stage was set for one of the most intense legal showdowns the country had ever seen. The room buzzed with a heightened sense of anticipation as Fani Willis continued her aggressive stance. Her words were cutting, precise, and calculated to inflict maximum damage. The media's cameras clicked rapidly as they captured every moment of the verbal duel. It was a showdown like no other, one that would soon dominate the headlines for days to come. Fani Willis didn't waste any time elaborating on her accusations. Pam Bondi isn't just a puppet in this game, she said, her voice laced with conviction. She's the one pulling the strings. It's one thing to serve as a legal advisor to the president, but it's another thing to use that power to manipulate the very justice system you swore to uphold. The quid pro quo is real. We have the evidence. Bondi's eyes narrowed slightly as she locked gazes with Willis. She had expected this, of course. She knew that Willis would be relentless. But Bondi had a reputation for resilience, and she wasn't about to let herself be painted as a villain based on empty accusations. She straightened up at the podium, her voice steady and unwavering as she addressed the room. You want to talk about evidence, Fani? Bondi began, her tone biting. Then let's talk about the lack of it. You've made your claims based on speculation and political gamesmanship. But where's the proof? Where's the undeniable, irrefutable evidence that ties me to a quid pro quo scheme? It doesn't exist. And that's why you're trying to paint a narrative instead of presenting facts. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room was silent for a moment, the tension hanging in the air like a thick fog. I've been in the political arena long enough to know that these kinds of baseless attacks are just par for the course, Bondi continued. But what Fani Willis doesn't seem to understand is that I've built my career on fighting for justice, not manipulating it. I will not stand idly by while someone like her tries to drag my name and the president's through the mud without any real proof. Fani Willis wasn't about to let Bondi have the last word. She raised her hand, signaling to the press that she had more to say. The reporters quickly shifted their attention back to Willis, eager for the next round of the battle. Pam Bondi can hide behind her lawyer speak all she wants, Willis shot back, her eyes locked onto Bondi with a fierce intensity. But the truth is clear. This isn't just about a political narrative. This is about a pattern of corruption, a pattern of using government power to secure personal gain. The quid pro quo charges are not just accusations, they are backed by hard evidence. Willis turned to the reporters, offering them a pointed look before she continued. We've gathered witness testimonies, financial records, and even audio recordings that directly implicate Bondi in this scheme. It's not just talk, it's a well-documented case of abuse of power. And I will ensure that this case is brought to light, no matter how much Bondi tries to deflect. Bondi's expression hardened as she listened to Willis. She had anticipated that the district attorney would rely on sensationalist rhetoric, but the mention of witness testimonies and audio recordings caught her attention. This was no longer just a matter of political posturing, it was a legal battle that could determine her fate. The thought of her reputation being tarnished by false claims made her blood boil, and she knew she had to act fast. I'm not here to play games, Fani Bondi said, her voice rising with controlled anger. I'm here to defend the truth. And the truth is that there is no quid pro quo. There's no evidence, no testimony, and no facts to support your claims. What you're doing is dangerous. You're using the legal system to push a political agenda, and I won't stand for it. She leaned in slightly, her eyes never leaving Willis's. You're attacking me and the president because we stand for something different, something that challenges your narrative. But I'm telling you right now, I will not back down. The tension in the room reached a boiling point. The reporters were on the edge of their seats, eager to hear what would come next. Bondi's words had been direct and forceful, but Willis wasn't finished yet. The game was far from over. Willis stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she prepared to deliver her next blow. Pam Bondi can deny all she wants, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. But the truth will come out. And when it does, we'll see just how much of a fighter she really is. As the tension between Pam Bondi and Fani Willis simmered, the stage was set for the real fireworks. The media was already buzzing with rumors and speculations, but now it was time for Willis to back up her accusations with something concrete. The world was watching, and Bondi knew that whatever came next could be the turning point in this high-stakes battle. The following day, Fani Willis held another press conference, but this time it wasn't just words that she was bringing to the table. She had something more, a collection of supposed evidence that, according to her, would blow Bondi's defense out of the water. As Willis walked up to the podium, she was more confident than ever. Yesterday, Pam Bondi stood before you and denied any wrongdoing, she began, her eyes scanning the room of reporters. But today, I'm going to show you the evidence that proves she's lying. A hush fell over the crowd as Willis pulled out a series of documents, one by one, laying them out on the table in front of her. She glanced at the first one and held it up for the cameras to see. This is an email chain that was sent from Pam Bondi's office to an aide in the White House, Willis said, her voice steady but filled with purpose. In it, Bondi explicitly discusses a meeting with several high-ranking officials in exchange for political favors. This is not a coincidence, this is quid pro quo. The reporters leaned in, snapping pictures of the document. Bondi, seated in the front row with a tight-lipped expression, was clearly growing impatient. She knew that this moment could be crucial in the court of public opinion, and she had to act fast to counter the narrative being created by Willis. Willis continued, her confidence growing with each piece of evidence she presented. And here, she said, picking up another document, we have a financial record showing a substantial donation made by a prominent donor with direct ties to Pam Bondi. This donation came just days before a key decision was made in a legal case involving that donor's interests. Again, the connection is clear, quid pro quo. The room erupted into murmurs, with the reporters exchanging glances and whispering among themselves. Bondi's face remained stoic, but her mind was racing. She knew that these documents, these alleged pieces of evidence, were damning if they were legitimate. She had to find a way to discredit them before the story spread any further. Fani Willis didn't let up. She went on to play an audio recording, one that she claimed was a conversation between Bondi and a government official. In the recording, Bondi was allegedly heard discussing ways to leverage political favors in exchange for financial contributions to the Trump administration. The recording was clear and the voice unmistakable. As the tape played, the room fell silent. Bondi's eyes narrowed in disbelief. This was the moment that could make or break her. She had to respond, and fast. The reporters were already bombarding her with questions, but Bondi stood up, her voice steady as she addressed the room. This is a classic case of misdirection, she said firmly, her eyes locking onto the camera. What Fani Willis is presenting is nothing more than selective editing and cherry-picked documents meant to create a false narrative. She paused for a moment, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. Let me be clear, I do not engage in quid pro quo. These documents have been manipulated and that recording has been taken out of context. The reality is that Fani Willis is using her office to wage a political attack against me, and she's willing to do anything to bring down this administration. Bondi's voice had a ring of authority, and while the evidence against her seemed to be mounting, she wasn't about to let it define her. She had spent years in the legal field, defending high-profile clients, and she knew the game all too well. I challenge anyone to come forward with real evidence, evidence that stands up in a court of law, she continued. What we've seen here today is nothing but an attempt to manipulate the media and sway public opinion. It's a classic tactic in today's political landscape, and I won't be a pawn in this game. She turned to the reporters, her gaze unyielding. I have nothing to hide, and I will fight this every step of the way. Fani Willis's face remained impassive as she watched Bondi's rebuttal unfold. She knew that Bondi's words were calculated, but the question was whether the public would believe her. The press had already begun to spin the story, and it was clear that the battle was far from over. But as the conference ended and the cameras turned off, both women knew that the war for public opinion was just beginning. The political battlefield was shifting, and the media storm around Pam Bondi and Fani Willis showed no sign of letting up. Both sides were dug in, each more determined than the last to prove their version of the truth. What started as a legal battle was now a full-blown war of narratives, each side trying to outmaneuver the other in the court of public opinion. The next few days were a blur of press conferences, interviews, and strategic leaks to the media. Bondi's defense team quickly mobilized, flooding the airwaves with their counterarguments. They went on the offensive, questioning the credibility of the documents Willis had presented. Bondi herself appeared on several major talk shows where she was grilled relentlessly by journalists. I've been in the trenches of politics for a long time, she said in one interview, her voice calm but resolute. I know how these things work. Fani Willis is using her position to push a political agenda, and she's willing to twist the facts to make her case. But make no mistake, I will not be intimidated by these attacks. Despite her confidence, Bondi knew that the weight of public perception was slowly turning against her. The media, ever hungry for scandal, had latched onto the story like a pit bull with a bone. Every twist and turn in the saga was analyzed, scrutinized, and dissected. Polls showed a growing divide in public opinion, with some Americans rallying behind Bondi's defense and others believing that the evidence against her was too strong to ignore. Meanwhile, Fani Willis continued to maintain her composure. She had already made significant headway in the media, and she wasn't about to let Bondi's attacks derail her momentum. The Fulton County District Attorney was speaking to the press almost daily, using her platform to further build her case. "We're not backing down," Willis told a reporter during one particularly tense exchange. "The evidence speaks for itself. Pam Bondi and others in the Trump administration have been using their positions of power for personal gain. This is corruption at its finest, and we will ensure that justice is served." Willis's words were powerful, and they resonated with many. She was positioning herself as the voice of the people, the one who would hold powerful figures accountable no matter the cost. But behind the scenes, she was also facing mounting pressure. The case she was pursuing was risky, and there were whispers that some of the evidence she presented might not be as ironclad as it seemed. Still, she was determined to see it through. On the other side, Bondi's legal team had begun preparing for what was inevitably coming, a courtroom showdown. There, in the ultimate arena of justice, they would have the opportunity to directly challenge Willis's evidence and expose any weaknesses in her case. Bondi was confident that once the truth came out, the entire narrative would collapse under its own weight. But the court of public opinion wasn't so easily swayed. And even as the legal battle heated up, the media circus around the case continued to grow. It was during this time that a game-changing piece of information came to light, a development that would shift the entire trajectory of the case. A whistleblower, a former employee from within Fani Willis's office, had come forward with explosive new details about the investigation. The whistleblower claimed that key pieces of evidence, particularly some of the documents Willis had presented, had been manipulated or altered. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media. Bondi and her team immediately seized on this new information, calling for an immediate investigation into Willis's handling of the case. "Fani Willis has been caught red-handed," Bondi declared in a fiery statement. "The very foundation of her case is built on falsehoods and manipulation. This is a clear abuse of power, and I demand that the authorities investigate this immediately. The American people deserve the truth." The press conference that followed was nothing short of dramatic. Bondi stood before the cameras with a look of triumph, her demeanor now more assertive than ever. The whistleblower's testimony, combined with her team's efforts, had turned the tables. Willis, on the other hand, was not backing down. She held her own press conference soon after Bondi's, defiantly dismissing the whistleblower's claims. "This is nothing more than a desperate attempt to discredit the investigation," she said, her voice sharp. "We have followed the law to the letter, and there is no evidence that anything has been tampered with. Pam Bondi's accusations are merely a deflection from the truth." The war of words had reached its zenith. Each side now had its own set of supporters, those who believed in Bondi's defense and those who rallied behind Willis's crusade for justice. The American public was divided, and the legal and political stakes had never been higher. The stage was set for the final confrontation, a courtroom drama that would determine not only the fate of Pam Bondi but also the credibility of Fani Willis and her investigation. For weeks, the media had been consumed by the spectacle, but now the time for talk was over. The only thing that mattered was the truth and whether or not it would hold up under the scrutiny of the court. Bondi's defense team was prepared. They had spent countless hours combing through every piece of evidence, scrutinizing every document and statement. They were ready to dismantle Willis's case, piece by piece, and expose what they believed were fatal flaws. But they also knew that this was not just about legal strategy, it was about winning the hearts and minds of the American people. On the first day of the trial, the courtroom was packed with reporters, legal experts, and spectators. The air was thick with anticipation as the judge called the court to order. Bondi entered the room with a calm and collected demeanor, her legal team by her side. Her reputation was on the line, and she knew that this was her moment to prove that the charges against her were nothing but a political ploy. Willis, too, was present, her face steely and determined. She had spent years building her career, and this case was her opportunity to prove that she was a champion of justice, someone willing to take on the powerful no matter the cost. The tension between the two women was palpable, and it was clear that neither was going to back down. The trial began with opening statements. Bondi's attorney, a seasoned litigator, took the floor first. He was eloquent, composed, and forceful as he dismantled the accusations against his client. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, "this case is nothing more than a politically motivated attack. There is no evidence, none, that proves Pam Bondi engaged in any wrongdoing. The documents presented by the prosecution have been manipulated, the recordings distorted. What we have here is a blatant attempt to smear a woman who has dedicated her life to public service. He pointed to the exhibit board displaying the documents and recordings that had been presented in the media. These so-called pieces of evidence are fabricated, and we will show you that they were tampered with to create a false narrative. The prosecution's case is built on a house of cards, and it will crumble under scrutiny. Pam Bondi sat in the front row, her eyes locked on the jury as her attorney made his case. She knew that the next few hours could change everything. This was her chance to clear her name, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. When it was Fani Willis's turn to deliver her opening statement, she was equally compelling. She stood tall, her voice resolute as she spoke to the jury. What we have here is not just a case of political corruption, it is a case of betrayal. Pam Bondi, along with others in the Trump administration, used her position to exploit the very people she was meant to protect. The evidence we have is clear, and it points directly to a pattern of illegal behavior. She laid out the documents, the emails, and the recordings once again, this time in the context of the courtroom. This is not a smear campaign. This is not a political attack. This is about accountability. This is about ensuring that those in power cannot use their position to enrich themselves at the expense of the American people. The opening statements were just the beginning. Over the next few days, both sides presented their cases. Bondi's legal team went after the evidence, carefully pointing out inconsistencies, contradictions, and potential forgeries. They called expert witnesses who testified that the documents presented by Willis's office had been altered in subtle but significant ways. Meanwhile, Willis's team pushed back, offering counterarguments and bringing forward their own set of witnesses. They argued that the whistleblower's testimony was unreliable and that the evidence was solid. It was a battle of wits, each side trying to outmaneuver the other in front of the jury. As the trial wore on, the media coverage intensified. The story had become the nation's obsession. Every development in the courtroom was dissected, analyzed, and debated. Social media exploded with opinions, memes, and hashtags. Some Americans believed that Bondi was the victim of a political witch hunt, while others were convinced that she was guilty of the charges leveled against her. The country seemed to be watching with bated breath, waiting for the final verdict. Then the turning point came. Bondi's defense team presented a smoking gun, an email that had somehow slipped through Willis's investigation. It was an email from Fani Willis herself, sent to one of her assistants, discussing the possibility of using the case against Bondi to boost her own political career. The email was dated just days before the press conference in which Willis had first presented the allegations against Bondi. The courtroom fell silent. The email was damning, and it raised serious questions about Willis's motivations. Bondi's team quickly capitalized on this new revelation, arguing that Willis had been pursuing the case for personal gain rather than out of a desire for justice. With the email in hand, the defense team made their closing arguments. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what we have here is a clear case of abuse of power, Bondi's attorney said. Fani Willis has used her office not to seek justice, but to further her own career. The evidence is clear. Pam Bondi is innocent. The jury deliberated for just under 3 days, the weight of the case bearing down on them. Finally, they returned with a verdict, not guilty. The courtroom erupted in reaction. Bondi's legal team was jubilant, while Willis's team looked stunned. Fani Willis herself stood motionless, her face a mask of disbelief. The media, which had been so certain of Bondi's guilt, was now forced to turn the spotlight on the prosecution and question the integrity of the investigation. Pam Bondi left the courtroom a free woman, but the war was far from over. The public's attention would shift, but the scars of this battle would remain for a long time. Both Bondi and Willis had fought hard, and in the end, it was Bondi who had come out victorious. The media narrative was shifting again, this time focusing on the aftermath. Bondi had cleared her name, but Fani Willis's future as a political figure had been called into question. The case had ended, but the repercussions were far-reaching. In the end, the story wasn't just about the battle between two powerful women, it was about the forces that shaped their paths, the systems they navigated, and the costs of playing in the highest stakes of politics and power.
What everyone think? They definitely try to use lawfare against conservatives when they do this, and they did it. She did it in a court that would definitely favor her side, you know. So I think I'm going to get onto Letitia James case. I got several clips on that. Here we go. I'll play you this one first.
One such bog dweller, it should come as no surprise to
Let me pop
anyone,
out of this.
is chief Trump-hating, failed Hollywood scriptwriter, California Representative Adam Schiff. Veteran investigators Christine Bish and John Stubbins filed an ethics complaint last week alleging that Adam Schiff committed fraud and perjury by declaring both his homes in California and Maryland as his primary residence, thereby violating state and federal laws, so they say. Now, many lawmakers keep a place in Washington, especially if they represent a state from far away, like Schiff does. But only one of their homes can be considered their primary residence. And if you're a lawmaker, your primary residence must technically be in the district you represent. Makes sense. But if you keep two primary residences, you are able to manipulate the system, get lower mortgage rates. And this is exactly what Bish and Stubbins allege. This story emerges as Schiff runs for the U.S. Senate against a backdrop where California homelessness has hit record highs and cost of living has driven Californians out. The ethics complaint lists apparent discrepancies in Schiff's voting record, where Schiff claims both homes in Maryland and California as primary residences between 2000.
This guy's such a piece of crap. Oh, the words I want to say.
2002 and 2013. The hypocrisy is glaring. Just this year, Adam Schiff's Democrats pushed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. off the ballot in New York over his debates about his various residencies. Would they dare hold these same standards up to Adam Schiff? Joining us now to discuss the exclusive details is best-selling author and investigative journalist Seamus Bruner, author of Controligarchs. Seamus, welcome back.
Hey, Chanel, it's great to be with you. Yeah, Adam Schiff is in a world of trouble if the legal system is fair. I know that this complaint has been submitted to multiple U.S. House agencies and to the House Judiciary, House Ethics, and House Oversight Committee. And it's true, Adam Schiff has been checking the box principal residence on multiple mortgage applications in 2 different states. You can't live in 2 places at once as your principal residence, and mortgage fraud is a serious crime.
Walk us through the timeline for this. I know that this is coming from a variety of documents that are, verifiable through public records, but walk us through the timeline here. Where do we start?
Yeah, so this all starts really around 2001, between 2001 and 2003. Adam Schiff is from California. He gets elected to Congress, and then he starts commuting, like you laid out in the intro here. He then sells his condo in Burbank, California, and buys a place in Maryland. And so on that box of his mortgage application in Maryland, he checks, "This will be my principal residence." But then he buys a condo in Burbank, and then he checks the box, "This will be my principal residence in Burbank." And so when he's checking these boxes in Maryland, principal residence, he's potentially committing voter fraud in California, because throughout 2006, 7, 8, and 9, his voter registration documents say he's living in Burbank. And so he goes back and forth checking these boxes all the way up through a refinance in 2013 of his Maryland property, saying that this is my principal residence. And so it's just, it doesn't make sense. How could you be living in both places at once? And I'm glad you mentioned the financial benefits. It's not just the lower mortgage interest rates. You get a lower interest rate on your primary residence. It's also the lower property taxes. You get a homestead exemption. It's also, you get lower insurance rates on your primary residence. And then there's also the federal tax returns with the mortgage interest deduction. And so there's all kinds of financial benefits for doing this. It's not clear whether Adam Schiff got sloppy or greedy, possibly both, but this is a big problem. There was a conviction of a Baltimore state attorney, Marilyn Mosby is her name. She was convicted for mortgage fraud for a very similar circumstance. As you mentioned, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Democrats tried to kick him off of the ballot, or successfully did, in New York for a similar residency discrepancy. And there's a host of other people who have had this problem of declaring two primary residences in places where they're actually not living full time.
Now, I have reached out to the Schiff campaign for comment about this story. We have, and they've yet to respond as of this broadcast. What has Adam Schiff said in response to this explosive allegation?
Yeah, so I mean, this really became a public news story back in 2009 with a bunch of other Congress members who were doing this. Doris Matsui, who is from California, she was in big trouble for declaring residency both in Maryland and in California. A bunch of congressmen have gotten into this problem before. Back in 2009, Schiff was mentioned for this because he's been doing it for that long. And he said he actually admitted, oh, I made a mistake. Now, you can't make a mistake and profit financially from that mistake without consequences. But nonetheless, Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the House, back then, and she should have investigated. But of course, why would she? So that was back in 2009. He said, quote, mistake. They said it was a clerical error in 2009. But here's the thing. They said in 2009 it was a mistake and a clerical error. He refinanced the Maryland property in 2011 and in 2013, and he checked the box principal residence both of those years. And so if it was a mistake, now we know now he refinanced the Maryland property around 2020 recently. And guess what? He checks the box second home. And so that is basically an admission that he knew he was violating these rules. And in 2011-13, he had full knowledge of what he was doing, and he checked the box anyway.
Well, Seamus, clearly the penalties for committing this kind of perjury and fraud are not very high. If lawmakers are doing this, have done this, and seem to continue to do this, it just doesn't look like they're worried about being penalized or punished.
Yeah, if this were Donald Trump, they would have buried him under the prison by now. But for Adam Schiff, he gets off scot-free. And so what's really interesting actually is going to see how this develops, because in Maryland, the penalties are extremely harsh, much harsher than in California for committing mortgage fraud, for checking the wrong box on these loan applications. And so what would be interesting is if he says that actually this whole time, all along, Schiff has maintained that, yes, he is a full-time resident of Burbank. He is a primary resident of Burbank, California, where his district is. It looks really bad if you're trying to represent people, but that's not where you live. It's not even allowed under House rules. Also, it would be voter fraud if he was claiming that he could vote in California if he was actually a Maryland resident. But what's interesting is the Maryland penalties are much stricter than the California penalties. So if justice were to be done, Adam Schiff's best argument would be to say, actually, I have been a Maryland resident all along, because he would want to avoid the 20-year prison sentence that mortgage fraud could carry in that state.
Incredible point. And that is something I guess the other lawmakers haven't really faced. They come from states that are a little more lenient about this. But again, Democrats seem to get away with this kind of stuff. I know you cover corruption and political corruption on both sides of the aisle, but inordinately, Democrats get away with these kinds of
because they control
games,
so much of the
shenanigans and
judges,
mistakes
Soros
way more
judges.
than Republicans do. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Well, here's the thing, Chanel. These could be federal crimes. And so if there is a change in the administration, I suspect a President Harris would look the other way on her good friend from California, Adam Schiff. But a Trump presidency, a Trump DOJ, could prosecute these crimes. Now, Adam Schiff will likely argue that the statute of limitations has run out on some of these things. It was quite a while ago. However, because the statute of limitations actually only kicks in for certain crimes once upon the date of discovery, which is very recently, actually. Most people did not know about this until very, very recently. This complaint filed by Christine Bish was not filed until this year. And so some of these details, some of this evidence means that no one knew about these things until just recently. So the statute of limitations may not kick in. Federal crimes are prosecuted by the DOJ. Trump would have an opportunity to have, the Trump DOJ to investigate these matters.
Oh, that's an excellent point. But then didn't you say that some of these allegations had popped up a few years ago with Schiff? I guess not conclusively.
Not conclusively. There is a potential whistleblower, someone who is willing to come forward. We're still talking to him, who worked in the mortgage company, who saw these things and said, this is perjury, said what Adam Schiff has done is perjury. And so, when a whistleblower can come forward and bring forth new evidence that no one else would have had access to, that would bring, up the statute of limitations potentially.
Interesting. No, that's an angle I think that hasn't been pointed out before. Well, Schiff is such an interesting player, and I say that I use that word carefully, but it's hard to look at Adam Schiff with a straight face. This is a man who has for years manufactured storylines against Donald Trump just to sully the entire Trump presidency. He's manufactured evidence about Russian involvement, or at least promoted documentation that was clearly not true, and with a straight face would tell the world that Trump was involved in Russian oligarchs and he was, meddled with the election. And here's Schiff himself trying to stand up and say he's a credible guy. It's a joke.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, it's there in black and white. We've got all of the documents posted on thedrilldown.com. These have been, submitted by Christine Bish to the House investigative committees, and it's pretty much smoking gun. I mean, he can say that he screwed up, but many other average Americans have been convicted with far less evidence for this serious crime. And so, it really upsets people when you and I have to live by all of the rules. And then someone like Adam Schiff, who is loaded off of all of his, policy, he gets very rich being a congressman. We don't know how these people like Nancy Pelosi, stock queen Nancy Pelosi, get so rich off of their public service. But Adam Schiff has done extremely well for himself, and for him to be taking these additional financial benefits and not repaying them, he needs to repay as a form of restitution the benefits he got. These loans were federally subsidized, federally backed loans, and so taxpayers are on the hook for such loans. And so for him to be taking advantage like this is unconscionable.
So we're helping them buy their houses.
To this whole conversation will be on when that statute of limitations actually kicks in. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of debate about that, but I think that's key to this conversation. Did it kick in back when it was discussed, back when, what is discovering, right? And that'll be a realm for the lawyers to argue, I'm sure. All right, Seamus, don't go anywhere. We have to take a quick break, but you're also working on another story. You actually put out a great report recently, and it really sounds the alarm on voter rolls. Stay right here. We'll be right back.
Yeah, that guy, he's not going to go down. I guarantee you. I bet you. He should have to pay all that crap back, at my thinking, So, all right, here's some more on Letitia James.
Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, is guilty of mortgage fraud, folks. The same kind of stuff that she tried to steal $400 million plus from Donald Trump for the same kind of claims, mortgage fraud, misrepresenting your property values. Well, how about this? In 2001, Letitia James purchased a 5-unit multifamily apartment complex for $550,000. In 2005, she refinanced that loan from a company called Aegis, which gave her a low of 7.2 mortgage rate interest that would continue to blow up to a ceiling of 10.2 over time. In 2011, she then took advantage of a federal program called HAMP, which is Home Adjustable Modification Program. Now, what that did under that program is it capped the amount of family units in a building to 4, meaning if you had 4 or less, you could be eligible for this program. And under this program, it means that your loan would not balloon up to the maximum of 10.2%. She then listed multiple times over the last 2 decades, as she's refinanced this place over and over and over again, that the apartment complex had 4 units. That ended up saving her over time, tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in the original 2001 purchase, it was a 5-unit complex. In 2005, when she did a remortgage on that and a refinance on that, she labeled it as a 4-unit. In 2011, when she went under the federal program, the HAMP program, she labeled it as a 4-unit. She's done it multiple times so she could get the lowest amount of interest possible. The unit today still stands at 5 units. She should have ballooned up to the maximum 10.2%, but she literally frauded and took advantage of a federal program and lied, saying that it's only a 4-unit program so she could save tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest over these last 2.5 decades. So ladies and gentlemen, there it is right there. Letitia James, you are guilty of mortgage fraud. We have the documents. We have the receipts to prove it. If you follow me on my newsletter, I'll put them out this afternoon so you can see the documents that it was originally a 5-unit multifamily complex. And since then, every time she's refinanced it, she's labeled it as a 4 so she could take advantage of these federal programs. We need you to tag Pam Bondi. We need you to tag the DOJ. We need you to tag the FBI. Jeremy Harrell, LFA TV, Letitia James, you're guilty.
And if it's a federal program, that means we're paying for a lot of it. Seemed like Adam Schiff as well.
On Valentine's Day a year ago, roses are red, violets are blue. No one's above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you. Happy Valentine's Day. She, of course, referring to Donald Trump. Our next guest using that tweet against her. No one is above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you. Letitia James. Florida Congressman and Florida gubernatorial candidate Byron Donalds is with us. Congressman, it's great to see you. Pretty ironic. Karma, payback, revenge, all of them apply here. Do you think the DOJ actually charges her?
Well, look, if it's clear that she violated the law and she was committing mortgage fraud, not to mention, as I understand it, if you're going to be the New York Attorney General, how are you claiming that you live in another state? That just doesn't work. And so if all these things pan out to be true, she should be charged. She was quick to charge Donald Trump, saying that he put fraudulent information on a loan application. Well, that's what she's accused of doing right now. And she also accused Donald Trump of saying that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. I mean, we all know that was just stupid and a lie. So if they go through their investigation and they find evidence, probable cause, that she was committing mortgage fraud for her own benefit, of course she should be charged. That's the way our system of justice works.
It all happened in 2023. So that's when she falsified these records, allegedly. And that was the same year she put Donald Trump on trial. Do you have any concerns about her being married to her father? Is that something we need to look into?
Listen, I think everybody's got concerns about that one. That's just not something that everybody thinks is cool. I don't. It's just weird, to quote a former person running for the vice presidency that we won't talk about. But look, at the end of the day, this is what happens. You have these officials who want to go on these witch hunts, while at the same time they're doing dirt behind the shadows. In the shadows, it's simply wrong. She should be held accountable like anybody else.
Yep, I agree. And they get away with it too, because they know that they control a lot of these DAs that are put by George Soros. Even if they get caught, nothing happens to them. It seems like we definitely have a long ways to go. We're heading in the right direction. We just got to keep going.
Of this up on.
We got to be the reporters, regular reporters.
He's the source of all this information. Sam, thank you so much for joining us here on the set.
Thank you for having me on, sir.
You're a New Yorker. You live right down the street, and this is some fantastic work here. I want to start and get into the specifics first. Starting with this Virginia property that she claimed as her primary residence while she was, this is Norfolk, Virginia. This is probably a 5-6 hour drive, claiming it's her primary residence while she's the AG of New York. From your report, you say James signed a specific power of attorney declaring her intent to make 604 Sterling Street in Norfolk, Virginia, her principal residence, a legally binding statement that may have automatically vacated her position as New York Attorney General under Public Officers Law 30, a declaration that came just 45 days before she launched her case, her civil fraud case against Donald Trump. Tell us more about what happened in Virginia here.
She purchased a property with a relative. This is in 2023, a few weeks. She closed
2 years
on,
ago. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She closed on it right before the Trump trial. And in the file documents with the county clerk's office, there was a power of attorney that she gave her cousin or niece to close the mortgage.
Yep.
And on the power of attorney, she represented that I intend to use this property as my primary residence. Now, there's two problems with that. The first problem is she lied on a power of attorney. Would anybody really believe that she was going to move to Virginia in the middle of the Trump trial? Second part is there's section 6 of the mortgage that states that the borrower, meaning her and her niece, have to occupy the property as their primary residence within 60 days. Not one or the other, both.
Wow.
She at least never occupied it. Right. That's
and why, what was the motivation to do this? Why lie?
Lower interest rates.
Lower interest rates.
I'd call her a petty thief.
A petty thief. This is, I mean, this is, when you look at the allegations she made against Trump, is this act worse, better, same?
Well, no, listen, Trump is not a real felon. I'm a real felon. Okay, so so Trump didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. You don't see anything wrong in the case you made against Trump? You think, I mean, obviously the jury here thought that he did something wrong.
Well, listen,
it seems like what every developer has ever done.
You should have listened to the appellate arguments, because the appellate judges seem to be, it seems like they're going to write an opinion that's going to vacate the entire case.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's because, I mean, it obviously was, we were all astounded by what they charged him for. That penalty was ridiculous. I want to move on here. Let's talk about Brooklyn, New York. This is her actual main residence. She walked out of this house this morning, a townhouse she owns. It's a multifamily home. You discovered James has been claiming that her townhouse is a 4-unit dwelling when it actually has 5 units. Why would she do this?
To obtain lower mortgage rates. Again,
Same motivation.
If 1 to 4 units has different underwriting guidelines, and also insurance too, by the way, insurance fraud. Whereas if it's 5 or more units, it's considered a commercial property and also subject to different insurance guidelines.
Right.
She repeatedly lied because there's a certificate of occupancy that states that it's 5 units. And in New York, that rules. And it's unbelievable that that complaints were filed with the Department of Buildings, and they wrote it off as a minor problem, minor error. Where every other landlord in New York, if you pull that stunt, illegal conversion, having a building that's different from the certificate of occupancy, they will fine you. They will make you alter the building.
She's flat out lying on these documents. She didn't deny anything about it. 1983, she takes out a $30,000 loan with her dad. She files it as a husband and wife. She's married to a father. Why?
First of all, that was discovered by Joel Gilbert, not me. I don't want to take credit for anybody's work.
Okay.
All right. That was 1983. What he found was that she bought the house as daughter and father and daughter. And then she, when they did the mortgage, it was husband and wife.
As husband and wife.
Also, you get different underwriting as husband and wife than as you buy it as, partners or different 2 family members.
We have
and now this is different from the Brooklyn home. This is a different property. I think it was in.
It reminds you of Omar.
It was a long time ago. This is 40.
Same thing with
42 years ago. We have allegations of flying private on taxpayer money, almost $42,000 to places like Martha's Vineyard, Puerto Rico. We have luxury hotels with mischaracterized unofficial filings. What can you tell us here?
Let's break it down. Between 2021 and 2022, she used private jets to get around, spent $42,000 of taxpayer money. The vendor she spent the money on was called Venture Jets. No other government agency, because the information is out there, back to 2014 ever used Venture Jets or for private jet travel, period.
Yeah.
Then in 2022, when the government stops paying for it, her campaign starts paying for it. Now, let's go back to this stuff that the taxpayers paid for. If you align the payments for the for Venture Jets and those trips, because you don't pay jet travel net 30 days, you pay it COD, cash on delivery.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of those trips align with major campaign events that she was attending. That's a problem.
That's a big. She has a lot of problems here.
Right.
It's unbelievable reporting. We've dug through. I think the bulk of the of what you have found. I believe. Real quick before I let you go, you have a past.
Yes.
And tell us how you got so good at what you just did with what you worked on this for 7 months. How'd you get so good at this?
Because I was a criminal for 20 years and I was very good at doing what I did as a criminal. Morality aside,
yeah.
The FBI saw a talent in me and they helped me out going forward after the Crazy Eddie case. The FBI taught me things when I was being investigated. The FBI taught me how investigations are done. All of the beatings that the FBI gave me when I was doing crime made me into a better human being.
That's amazing. And you're just you said you like to figure out puzzles. You like
I love puzzles. I love numbers. Listen.
Yeah.
This is not I am not the Trump administration. I don't work for the Trump.
Yep. And then a little quicker than I thought it would. Yeah, she's a piece of crap and getting away with it. Let me go to Fani Willis now. I got some ones here. I think I'm just going to play them from the top down on these. Now, there's a lot of repeat on this. They're covering the same evidence, but then some of them have some different stuff on this. So it was hard to pick which one, so I'm just going to play them all. Here we go. Hopefully it'll come up. There we go.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, people.
Well, this is the Fani.
You know
I
that
played
it helps
this
us
one. I'm
out,
sorry.
and of course, it helps you.
I played that one. That was the wrong one. Right here it is. Letitia James one.
It's James.
Oh.
The Attorney General.
Oh, okay.
So that's her house.
So only she lives there?
Her family lives there.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
But they have apartments. The C of O should not have changed. It's just
Empower, Harris.
Kind of confusing because it says 1 to 4 family, and then it says just one family.
on the C of O.
Things are getting extremely serious when it comes to the notorious NYAG Letitia Big Shame James. I've got a lot to share with you. Grab your popcorn, your favorite drink, relax, sit back. Your boy Nez has you covered. I'm going to share with you clips from experts who are saying people don't even understand the impact and the real dramatic seriousness and severity of this situation of Letitia James engaging in nothing short of exactly the same thing that she charged Donald Trump with almost a year ago in August, falsifying business documents and home lending mortgage documents to get favorable loans. Dan Abrams, who was a former legal analyst from NBC, this guy is a total leftist, not a Republican, he hates Trump. Even Dan, I'm going to share with you a clip that he said, which is unreal. And then I've also
they're writing the
Letitia
rules
James's
and breaking them.
response, which is pretty cringeworthy, but you have to see this. But first, I just want to wrap up. Oh, I also have some footage from Project Veritas, O'Keefe Media, of what they discovered with not just the residents in Norfolk, Virginia, but the brownstone property in Brooklyn, where she lied about the amount of units and also claimed that this is so bizarre and weird in Ilhan Omar fashion that her father was her husband. It's insane. But first, check this out. This is the residence, just to keep you up to speed, that she said she was the principal occupant resident. This is in Norfolk, Virginia. So this is living proof that she lied. And also, New York State requires any elected official needs to have their primary occupancy in the actual state of New York. So she's committing a dereliction of duty there and an oath of office violation. But check this out really quick.
Hi there. I'm a reporter with the Daily Caller News Foundation.
Goodbye, you're trespassing.
I'm sorry.
Trespassing. My kids are out here.
I understand. We mean no trouble. We're just curious who.
Those in chat there, do you think she'll end up doing jail time? I kind of wonder. I mean, they got her pretty dead to right on this stuff. You think she's got to go to jail?
The occupants of the home are,
Don't
because
worry
there's
about whose occupants. That's none of your business.
well there are connections to
Okay,
New York Attorney General Letitia
that doesn't
James.
matter. You're trespassing.
Are you related to Letitia James?
Do you know her?
You're trespassing. Go in the house.
Do you know
You're
Letitia James?
trespassing.
No? Okay.
You're trespassing.
No comment. Thank you,
Don't
ma'am.
come up to my house no more.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. You have a good one.
You will. Be well.
There's a car parked in the driveway.
Hello there, ma'am. No comment?
Yeah, you're trespassing.
Okay, well, who lives here?
Who lives here, ma'am?
No comment. Okay.
Okay, so I didn't realize this at first in the video that I previously did when I shared that, but did you hear the little kid when asked, does Letitia James live here? And then the adult like quickly was like, get inside the house. The kid goes, no. He answered emphatically. You know, children usually tell the truth. I missed that in the first video. So I'm kind of glad that I shared this. But again, I love all your comments from that first video saying that, man, it sounded coordinated, it sounded pre-rehearsed. They both said the same thing. They both were unrelated to Letitia James. And it seems abundantly obvious that is not her primary residence. I mean, it's a simple question. Are you related to Letitia James? Does she live here? And they both emphatically immediately went into hyper defensive. Okay, so that's that residence. Now we have another residence, a Brooklyn brownstone, which has officially has 5 units where she claimed, and by the way, I'll explain why this is important and why she did this. She claimed it only has 4, and now I have brand new evidence where not only she claimed it didn't have 5, not only did she claim it had 4, but in some years she claimed it had only 1 and 2. The ramifications of this, you guys, it's so insane. Like, it's too big to even fathom. That's why I titled this, She's Going to Jail. She is facing prison time. There is no doubt in my mind, and I've got more proof coming up. Watch this.
A property in New York that she claimed as a 4-unit structure instead of the required, instead of a 5, which Pulte says means she was able to get a different type and more favorable loan.
But also, they claim that in some of these forms, she actually states that her father is her husband in order to file as a married couple.
Questions also raised about James's Brooklyn home. 2001 city records show it was a 5-family dwelling, which experts say would require a commercial property loan with perhaps higher interest rates. But James allegedly listed it as a 4-family unit.
We were knocking earlier and no one was answering, so we weren't sure.
Okay. Well, you can always leave a note.
I mean, you guys, this is such divine karma. It is such divine justice. It is so F around and find out. Fafo. It is so beautiful. It is so delicious. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Check this out. The certificate of occupancy. This is, again, not the Norfolk residence. This is that Brooklyn brownstone that you just saw footage of thanks to Project Veritas. The certificate of occupancy in January 26, 2001 was 5-family dwelling. Mortgage documents from 2001 over a 20-year period to 2021. In 2021, she claimed it as a 1-family. So it's a million times worse than just knocking off 1 unit just casually. She knocked it off by 3, sometimes 4. And then 2001, 2007, 1 to 2, 2006, 1 to 3, 2003 to 2019, 4-family. Maybe because, I don't know, why did she do that? Because she tried every imaginable way to bleed the system to her advantage to get the favorable loan terms, tax, insurance. You got to understand, this is not just a way of getting favorable loan terms and a lesser interest rate. It also affects your insurance. It also affects your homeowner's warranty. It affects your property taxes. It affects everything. This is mortgage fraud at such a criminal level. It is absolutely insurmountable. I wanted to share this. This is from Mila Joy, who is a Fox and Friends contributor as well as a political analyst. She posted this on X very recently saying, I was a loan officer for a couple of decades. The difference between a 4-unit and 5-unit is tens and tens of thousands of dollars difference on monthly payments over the loan's life. Imagine what the difference is between 1 and 5 units, which we now discovered that she claimed. She also states Letitia James knew what she was doing. She committed blatant loan fraud. Lock her up. We also have a clip from Dan Abrams' show, who again was a former legal analyst for NBC. He is a far left a political commentator and TV show host. And if you could hear the dejection, the forlornness in his voice, and just listen to what he states.
New York Attorney General Letitia James could be charged with a crime for mortgage fraud. Now, let me tell you, when I first heard that the Attorney General had been referred, there was a criminal referral made by the director of Federal Housing and Finance Agency, my initial response was, oh boy, here we go. Trump is just weaponizing the departments, and in this case, making a reference to the DOJ, and I'm sure this is all nonsense. And then I actually read what they were alleging. This is real. This is serious. And I think this could mean big trouble.
There you have it from Dan Abrams. Also, I just want to say this before I share, upcoming right now, if you made it this far, Letitia James's response to all this. Wow, wait till you hear this. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General for the United States of America, has now stated she is going to be looking into this extremely carefully. And I can't wait to see the outcome of this. Here, long awaited, big anticipation. We've all been waiting to see what she's going to say about this. There were some claims by certain reporters saying that they tried to approach her at her brownstone, or she was around her brownstone property in Brooklyn, and she pretended she was on her phone. They tried to ask her questions and flag her down, and she pretended she was on her phone and tried to dodge any question. Now she went on some strange.
Now, when they go through this with Pam Bondi, they're going to get discovery. And I bet you a lot of other stuff is going to come out that she was all in on going after Trump on that. I guarantee you there's communications with some of the people doing this and other things. I'm wondering where that'll lead to. I bet you it's going to go on for a good 3 years and or more. And I hope she ends up with jail time and some other people go down with her, because I know they communicated with the Sleepy Joe's White House.
Bizarre show. I don't know what it was, Spectrum News or something, but I have the entire clip of her response right here.
Good to see you, Ms. James. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Errol.
Absolutely. What is going on here? Did anybody contact you before this letter went out accusing you of this, that, and the other and making a criminal referral about real estate transactions?
No, not at all. And let me just say to all New Yorkers and to all Americans, the allegations are baseless. The allegations are nothing more than a revenge tour. And as you mentioned, my office was successful in securing a $454 million judgment against Donald Trump and others for exaggerating the value of his assets. He engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud. And the interest is accruing each and every day while the case is on appeal in the first.
Harrison Rocky, do you think she'll throw some other people under the bus to save her own butt? I don't know. I'm open.
Department. It's important that individuals know that this is nothing more than the continuation of the tour. He went after law firms, universities, immigrants, women. Thousands of federal employees right now are unemployed. Our government is in chaos and in disarray. Medicaid, Social Security, CFPB, and the list goes on and on and on. And as you know, as you mentioned, each and every day, my office is leading the fight against these executive orders, which have no legal import at all, have no legal significance. and we are standing up for the rights and privileges of New Yorkers and Americans. I will not be silenced. I will not be bullied. I will not bend. I will not break, and I will not bow to anyone. No one is above the law, including the President of these United States.
Okay. Well,
And the Office of the Attorney General will continue to stand up.
Let me follow up of some of what's in this this letter. It says according to media reports, which for us in the media is kind of a red flag, meaning that it seems to be based on some social media posts that I know were made by partisan political actors. But just let me ask you about some of the specifics in the letter. They're saying that your house in Brooklyn is a legal 5-family and the mortgage on it is for a 4-family house. Is that true?
So let me just say that, Errol, you know, as any good attorney, I will not litigate this case in a camera. It's important that we will respond to these allegations at the appropriate time and in the
Means you can't get away with lying.
But I will not go back and forth with respect to these baseless allegations. I am more focused again on standing up for the freedoms, the liberties, and for the rule of law in the state of New York.
I was under the impression by all of this that what they were really looking for is what they got, which is a headline saying, Tish James is under a criminal investigation. Is that pretty much what's going on here?
Yeah, that's what they got. That's what they got. And it's unfortunate that you have some of these right-wing conservative individuals who are camped out in front of my home and in front of the homes of my relatives in Virginia, harassing them each and every day. And it's unfortunate, knocking on the doors of my neighbors and the neighbors of my relatives in the state of Virginia. And it is nothing more than a headline. Nothing more than, again, retaliation against all of the actions that I have taken successfully against Donald Trump.
Boy, I can't wait to get your comments on this. It's interesting that one thing that really stands out to me in that response is it just me, or does every single time she talks and she gets into this, like, I am empowered woman, this is baseless, and I stand up, and I'm here for women, and I'm here for this, and I'm here for Thurston Thurgood, or whoever her hero is, God knows. She starts sounding like a villain from old, like, Superman movies or something. I don't know. Is it just me? It sounds kind of creepy. It sounds way forced. To me, she seems very, very shook. But the one thing that stood out is she says, the guy asked a very simple question. You're charged with having an interest rate based on a 4-unit home rather than 5. Is that true? And she says, no, I'm not here to litigate on camera. A simple no, that's not true would have sufficed. She was very quick to say that these guys are all nuts, partisan, conservative, conspiracy theory, headline seeking. She had no problem saying that. Why is it that all of a sudden she pleads the 5th in essence when asked directly? I mean, it seems like a simple no. Like, did you actually cite this as a 4-unit rather than what it is, a principal occupancy of 5 units? Oh, I'm not here to litigate on camera. You're on camera all the time litigating. You were on camera and having press conferences every other week when you were charging Donald Trump, doing your, Elvira, I don't know, villain tone voice. I mean, some minutes she's Ghetto Crockett, another second she's, some super villain in a skin tight black suit or something. Another minute she just sounds completely unhinged. I don't know who's the real Letitia. Will the real Letitia please stand up? I don't know. But, it just seems very odd. It seems very strange to me. I can't wait to get your comments on this, but I go with Abrams. I go with Milledge. I go with the experts, Jonathan Turley. This is dead serious. And you better believe that the DOJ is going to pursue this to the fullest extent of the law. As Dan Abrams says, I would be shocked if this Letitia James is A, not fired, relieved of duty, and facing criminal charges. I would be shocked. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I see you eyeing this hat. If you want to get your very own 100% original made in the USA design, our shop link is in the pinned comment and description. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right here, just in case you missed them. Tap my face.
Let me move on to the next one. Oh, they're all good. Poetic justice for her. This is pretty good. Might have an ad. I'll mute it if it does. Yeah. Okay. Dang it. Let me refresh it.
A large retail store.
There we go.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order.
Tricky week for our friend the Trumpster. What with tariff fights and everyone losing their mind about illegal aliens being sent to, oh my God, El Salvador.
Finally got it.
But there was one piece of news that I don't think has gotten anywhere near the attention it deserves, and I thought you should know about it. That's right, friends. Let's get ready to take a trip on the Poetic Justice Express. Remember this woman? Yep, that's right. It is Letitia James, the deeply anti-Trump Attorney General of New York State, who has made her entire career, almost for the last decade, all about just one thing: bringing down Donald Trump and trying to chuck him out of office and into jail. I'm not kidding, by the way. You know, in 2018, when she ran for and won the position of Attorney General, she actually said this. Have a look.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president. He should be charged with obstructing justice. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses. I will be shining a bright light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. And every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn.
Illegitimate president? Oh my gosh, is she questioning an election? Well, we can't have that. But regular viewers of this program and outside
as she's stealing tax dollars from us, taking trips.
Letitia, also known as Tish to her pals, may have let things get a little bit too personal when it came to trying a case against Trump back in 2023-24. And bring a case she did. Letitia James, you'll recall, she was the one who was responsible for that civil case against Donald Trump that claimed that he had inflated the value of his assets to get more favorable loans. Loans which, by the way, Trump paid back. So, I don't know, it's a little hard to see where the fraud was. And in fact, you know, to that point, his own bankers even testified that everything was fine. So, during the trial over the civil fraud, Letitia James, I gotta say, she reveled maybe a little bit too much in her role. Now, remember again, she thought she was going to be the one responsible for taking down Trump. She thought she would be the one who would be on the TV when across the country, white dudes for Harris yelled, "Hey, honey, get in here and bring your boyfriend. They finally got Trump." Letitia James tweeted almost more about Trump than Trump about the trial, saying that Donald Trump lied about his net worth on his statements of financial condition to get loans for much better terms than he should have. Well, again, that sounds pretty serious to me. And last Valentine's Day, she even wrote, "Roses are red, violets are blue. No one is above the law, even when you think the rules don't apply to you." Well, ladies and gentlemen, keep that in mind because I think by now you may know where this is going. Yes, it seems that Letitia James herself, good old Tish, is now under investigation by the Justice Department. And oh, this is just too perfect. She's under investigation for possible mortgage fraud, which is, as the New York Post put perfectly, a Tish best served cold. Now, according to...
Now, how do you think the mainstream media is going to try to cover for her on this? What are they going to do? I mean, can they cover it? They'll try to do a red flag event. Somehow they got to try to get her out of this. That's one of their heroes.
Reports Letitia James is accused of falsifying records to get loans on a property in the Commonwealth of Virginia by saying she was a resident there when she was a prosecutor in New York, where to be a prosecutor, you have to be a legal resident. Here's a bit of the letter sent to Trump Attorney General Bondi detailing the accusations, saying, quote, "Based on media reports, Ms. Letitia James has in multiple instances falsified bank documents and property records to acquire government-backed assistance and loans and more favorable loan terms." Oh, boy. Meanwhile, the Daily Caller went looking for Tish at one of her alleged Virginia properties. Here's what they found.
I'm a reporter with the Daily Caller News Foundation. I'm sorry.
My kids around here.
I understand. We mean no trouble. We're just curious who the occupants of the home are, because there's
about who's occupants. That's none of your business.
well there are connections to New York Attorney General Letitia James. Are you related to Letitia James?
Do you know her?
You're trespassing. Go in the house.
Do you know Letitia James? No? Okay. No comment. Thank you, ma'am.
Huh, maybe she wasn't a resident after all. Well, how the worm turns, hey? Let's have, by the way, a little bit more of Tish from back when she was suing Trump.
Representing our respective states, stand up and enforce the rule of law. The President of these United States is not above the law. No matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are, everyone must play by the same rules. Please sue him for us. Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the
Pretty cocky behavior, especially given that mortgage fraud carries penalties of up to 30 years in prison and $1 million in fines. Though let's be fair, I'm sure that I doubt anyone is actually doing that kind of time. But she thought she had it. She thought she had Trump in the bag. Now, though, the irony is that she is being investigated for the same stuff that her lawfare case was all about against Trump. And now she and her supporters are saying, well, no. This is all just bogus lawfare by the Trump Justice Department. And James, for her part, is well defiant, if a little less cocky. Here's what she had to say after the investigation was announced.
My mission is clear. I'm focused. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I've been trained by the best. I went to Howard University. That overturned legal segregation in this country. I've been taught in those classrooms where Thurgood Marshall once taught. I'm not afraid of no president. Donald Trump, we're ready for you. We're coming for you. We're standing up for you. We're fighting on. We're not going down silent. Victory, my friends, is clear. It's now.
Was it just me, or did she seem a little less cocky there, even a little bit nervous behind the bluster? Meanwhile, when the New York Post tried to question her about all these matters, well, she pretended to be on her phone. Hey, where have I seen this before? Oh, yeah, Kamala. Our Tish learns from the best. Look, there's a lot more that's going to play out here, but I wanted to share this story with you because it's important and because it is such a wonderful bit of poetic justice that illustrates one of my favorite sayings. Whenever a left-winger accuses a right-winger of doing something bad, well, it's a pretty good chance they turn out to be guilty of the same thing themselves. Allegedly, of course.
This is a huge deal. Letitia James, Attorney General of the state of New York, may be on the wrong end of the law herself. This is all over the news right now. The allegations first reported by the outlet White Collar Fraud. Fox News bringing them on the air last night. On Tuesday, she was hit with a federal criminal referral for instances of alleged mortgage fraud. The Federal Housing Finance Agency Director, William Pulte, sent a letter to AG Pam Bondi and her deputy AG, Todd Blanche, accusing Letitia James of mortgage fraud. Quote, in the course of exercising U.S. federal housing authorities under Federal Housing Enterprises Financial Safety and Soundness Act, U.S. federal housing has identified matters that are appropriate for referral to the U.S. DOJ for the consideration of criminal prosecution. The bottom line is, they're alleging that she got a second house in Virginia. She lives in New York. She's the New York Attorney General. She has to live in New York. She got a second house in Virginia, and then in applying for a mortgage for that house, she had a lawyer to whom she designated power of attorney declare that it was her principal residence. They allege that she did that because you get a better mortgage rate when you say it's your principal residence, because banks think if you're going to default on a mortgage, it's not going to be the one of the house in which you live. So if you fall on hard times, you're more likely to default on a second mortgage, like a beach home or a secondary thing, than your primary. And that she, knowing that this was not her primary residence, obviously she's in New York and she has to be, lied. And that you can't, having your power of attorney lie is the same as you
there'll
lying.
be a
There's
lot of
absolutely no
discovery
distinction
on this
legally.
stuff. So more
So
is going to come
they're
out.
saying she did that. Then they're saying she had a place in Brooklyn that she was going to get a special mortgage for as long as it had 4 apartments or bedrooms or less. You could get a lower rate if you had 4 bedrooms or under. I can't figure out whether it was like one of those townhomes where everybody has their own apartment or whether it's a dwelling that has actual bedrooms for a family, but it's irrelevant. The point is you get a better mortgage rate if it's got 4 bedrooms or less, and this place had 5. And they're alleging that she wrongfully declared it had 4 over and over, once again, to get a more favorable mortgage rate. And then on top of all that, and this is truly bizarre, they are alleging that a long time ago, when, I don't know how old she was, but it was 1983, they're alleging that she and her father signed mortgage documents that stated they were husband and wife in order to secure a home mortgage. And then again on May 4th, 2000, Ms. James was listed as, with her husband, as husband and wife. And alleging that while this was a long time ago, it raises serious concerns about the validity of her representations on mortgage applications. This is an earthquake. This woman devoted years of her life in the past 5 years to bringing down Donald Trump. For what? For alleged misrepresentations to banks about the value of his properties. The allegation was so that he could secure more favorable loans than he was entitled to. In a different, dressing, it's the same general fashion as what she's being accused of herself, Batya. Now, she hasn't spoken to it directly, but her spokesperson said she's focused every single day on protecting New Yorkers, especially as this administration weaponizes, that's rich, as this administration weaponizes the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution. She will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. But this is unbelievable. And if one word of this is true, she is in a world of trouble right now. Your thoughts?
It's so amazing because I always say Donald Trump has a real genius for bringing out the lowest qualities in his opponents. You look at how the Democrats have turned on all of their own values the minute they suspected Trump of supporting them, whether it was standing up for the working class or standing up for free speech or standing up for women, as you point out all the time, Megan. They simply will not ever cease or hesitate to retreat from their own values if they think Donald Trump may be representing them. But here we have something even more delicious, which is that it was revealed that the person attacking him for all of these trumped up, ridiculous charges, who went after him for the pure sake of going after the political rival of the Democrats because he was more popular than the Democrats, that she was herself allegedly engaged in the very things that she was pretending he was doing, which he was not actually doing. It is just chef's kiss, Megan, because it is such a parallel for the Democrats who accuse Donald Trump of being a threat to democracy while themselves undermining democracy. They accuse him of weaponizing the law while themselves weaponizing the law. And this is just like such a beautiful, perfect bow on top of the box of their hypocrisy, where he again and again comes out ahead.
It's incredible. She's going to be hoisted on her own petard because she's spent the past 4 years, arguing about how no one is above the law, the powerful must be treated the same as the poor, that just because you're rich and famous doesn't give you the right to manipulate the banking system to get more favorable loans. Oh my God. All of that is going to be shoved right down her throat and into her craw in the context of this investigation and this case. Now she'll tell us what her defense is. I'm all ears. Cannot wait to hear how she's had alleged repeated slip-ups on her mortgages. Like, one, you could understand. I don't know, like maybe the dwelling that she said is 4 bedrooms instead of 5. Maybe they did something with the 5th bedroom, like she's like counting as a study, although that's not the way it works. On mortgage law, they want to know like what qualifies as a bedroom. They don't care how you're using it. I'm just trying to look for ways to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm not sure how you say your father is your husband. That's a tough one. It's not exactly what she's being prosecuted for. But if true, it absolutely shows a pattern of dishonesty. And by the way, pattern evidence can get in criminal trials. They've been using it against Harvey Weinstein and others up and down Letitia James's New York State criminal system. So this woman's in a lot of trouble today. I'm telling you, this is serious. Having read the complaint, Jonathan Turley was on Fox last night, and he said exactly this. It took me less than a minute to find cases prosecuted under this statute for false claims of principal residences and the other allegations. So this is not some unusual statute that they bring up from time to time for enemies. This is actually quite frequently enforced. And says this woman previously prosecuted Trump for everything short of ripping a label off a mattress. She emphasized he was ultimately responsible for any filings made in his name or that of his company, irrespective of whether he had seen them or signed them personally. He authorized them, just as she would have here. And said the greatest danger for Letitia James may be if the Letitia James standard is applied to her, where she emphasized such technicalities matter and that the powerful should not be given a free pass. This is just unbelievable. I mean, Fani Willis goes down because she couldn't keep her zipper up long enough to actually see the prosecution of Donald Trump through. Right. And then I believe she lied under oath very clearly to me, as well as her paramour, Nathan Wade. So that case crumbled. It crumbled, even though it was a state case. He couldn't be pardoned. There were all sorts of reasons why that one was problematic. But to your point, his enemies are just the worst people. Then Jack Smith loses the Florida case before Trump even won because he was the wrong prosecutor. They held that the appointment of this particular prosecutor was wrong. The J6 case was all but gutted by the Supreme Court, saying he's got presidential immunity for most of this. The only one who got Trump was Alvin Bragg. And even that case was really undermined by that presidential immunity finding and ultimately kind of crumbled at the very end, even though Alvin Bragg was determined to see it through so he could call Trump a convicted felon. And I think it'll be reversed on appeal. So what do you have now? You do have the E. Jean Carroll verdict, which we all know is bullshit. And then there's this case by Letitia James, which was the one I was told by Trump insiders was the one that bothered him the most all along. It's his company, his near and dear company. And what's being alleged in this lawsuit is that case was pursued by an alleged fraudster herself.
Yeah. And if this is true, I mean, Megyn, if you had done this stuff, right, like the stuff she's accused of doing, you might sort of hesitate before going out and having the most high profile person on planet Earth be accused by you of the same exact things. So you have to understand here, how is it possible that she could have staked so much knowing that she had done the same thing if this is all true? And I think the answer to that is really important. Democrats fundamentally do not consider conservatives and Republicans to be human in the same way that they are. They don't see them as comparable. And the confidence with which she used the justice system to go after Trump for the very crimes that she herself is alleged of having committed suggests to me this kind of confidence that the system will always work not justly, but in their favor, right? There's a kind of unconscious acknowledgement here, an admission, if you will, that they believe that they are not held to the same standard as conservatives and Republicans, and certainly Donald Trump. And I think for me, that's what's really interesting about this.
She was out there with the red drape, tempting the bull. Who could forget the many times we heard this from her in SOT 3?
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the He's going to know my name personally.
That man in the White House who can't go a day without threatening our fundamental rights.
Yes, we need to focus on Donald Trump and his abuses. We need to follow his money. We need to find out where he's laundered money. We need to find out whether or not he's engaged in.
All this is going on because they love the race hustling where they make tons of money off the poor. They're constantly keeping them divided and making them think they can't get ahead because of race and all that kind of stuff. And they make tons of money off of it.
In conspiracy.
Look at that shooting case
That the
recently.
days of Donald Trump are coming to an end.
I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
That's a Fox News, but it's unbelievable. You've heard about tariffs recently.
It's now, and I'm not waiting 4 years. I'm waiting 2 until a speaker by the name of Hakeem Jeffries comes to bring us some rest.
Oh, sweet Jesus, let me kill this. You ain't gonna get away with this, Jacob. They gonna catch your black. You gonna be on the wanted posters now, and everybody else gonna be looking for you.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. Criminal referral to the U.S. Department of Justice to look into potential mortgage fraud on various different occasions over several decades. We already know this by now.
The Trump administration now going after New York Attorney General Letitia James. She sued Trump over real estate fraud, and now the feds say she may have falsified mortgage documents.
David, Natalie, the Trump Justice Department says it is now deciding whether to investigate State Attorney General James for possible mortgage fraud. The issues focus mainly on 2 properties, one here in New York, the other in Virginia. James denies wrongdoing. She says the Trump administration is weaponizing the federal government and is now wrongly trying to bully her. This Norfolk, Virginia home is co-owned by Attorney General Letitia James. That, according to records that appear to show she may have claimed that house as her principal residence. The Federal Housing Finance Agency director, who previously was a Trump fundraiser, sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department calling for a mortgage fraud investigation into James, alleging she appears to have falsified records to receive favorable loan terms. Sam Antar, an accountant by training and past convicted felon, first raised questions about James's property-related records.
If she did actually use it as a primary residence, she'd be disqualified automatically as the Attorney General. If she didn't actually use it as a primary residence, she would be committing mortgage fraud. So take one or the other.
Late this afternoon, James's office said the co-owner, her niece, used the Virginia home as her primary residence. Questions also raised about James's Brooklyn home. 2001 city records show it was a 5-family dwelling, which experts say would require a commercial property loan with perhaps higher interest rates. But James allegedly listed it as a 4-family unit. The James spokesperson would not say if any units have since been combined, as a property of 4 can be backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, often qualifying for better interest rates and a lower down payment. James's office says since she has owned the Brooklyn building, it has always been a 4-residence home. A spokesman for James today said the Trump administration weaponizes the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution. She will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. In Washington, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked on Fox about the criminal referral.
Of course, we'll be reviewing it.
State Attorney General James won a civil case against Donald Trump and his organization for fraud, and he's appealing the nearly $500 million in fines.
Now, James has recently given a speech in front of I think it's called the National Action Network. It is a network, I believe it's founded and run by Al Sharpton. And many people are saying that James, that she looks like shook, that she looks scared. And y'all know, let me say this, y'all. I've said this many times. I'm going to repeat it. I don't like lawfare. Okay. So many of y'all and many people in the comments have said, look, she gave it, she dished it out. Now she needs to take it. I get that. I get the revenge angle, right? But personally, I don't like lawfare. So I'm just going to put that out there. But with that said, this clip, y'all, reminds me of anybody ever watched the movie Django Unchained? Take a look at this clip from Samuel L. Jackson and then look at the clip from Letitia James.
Oh, sweet Jesus, let me kill this. You ain't gonna get away with this, Django. They gonna catch your black. You gonna be on the wanted posters now. Everybody on is gonna be looking for you.
So it looks like she has not learned her lesson, y'all. Did you notice how she got herself into this mess, presumably with the lawfare angle, and now she's calling on a Democratic victory in 2026 in the midterms so that she can get one of her people in position to then go after Trump. I mean, it's like, yo, why not just back off of the lawfare situation altogether? I mean, that's how you got yourself into this situation in the first place. What you'll notice that Letitia James does is she gives these speeches. She starts getting herself riled up. She starts going further and further and further. And by the end, she's yelling, she's screaming, and she's saying things that are not recommended. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, she's getting herself worked up. And by the end, she's spouting off on some things that I wouldn't recommend saying, particularly when you are an attorney general with mortgage fraud cases hanging over your head. And the person who can push the button is the person who you put what many people would say dubious cases on yourself. So y'all, these clips are going around. What I would like for y'all to do, I just want to give you the entire context of her statements, because I've only been able to find the clip. Maybe you've only been able to find the clip as well, but here I was able to find her entire speech. I like for people to have the entire context. So I am going to be presenting to this to you under fair use for educational purposes. Again, I do not like taking people out of context. I like for people's words to be presented in the full context. So here's everything that she said during this speech that, of course, we all see how it ended.
I have to leave right after I speak. Why? One, because as you know, yesterday they fired thousands of HHS workers, and they also have stopped all of these grants. And one of the grants that they've stopped, which is close to my heart, is Head Start grants. And what I heard from my beloved Bedford-Stuyvesant is centers are closing. Region 2, which covers New York, is closed. All of the workers in Region 2, again, that covers Head Start, have been fired, terminated. The HEAP grants for individuals who need assistance with heat during the winter, that has been dismantled. So I've got
about 80% of the kids in the things are all illegals. Americans aren't having kids anymore, and it's all illegals and their kids. That's where all that money's going. They're stopping the money there first.
I got to rush back to the office because you know that there's nothing more close to my heart than a lawsuit. And so you tell Donald Trump the lawsuit's coming. It's just a matter of hours. It's coming. And so it's great to be in here among so many friends and so many kindred spirits to promote a modern civil rights agenda, an agenda that includes one standard of justice for all people and social equity for all communities. There's something powerful than being in a room full of dynamic and change-making women, because as we all know that there's nothing more dangerous than a woman with a made-up mind. And my mind is made up. Women who have stepped into their power, women who show up, speak up, and fight back, not just for themselves, but for their families, their communities, and future generations. Women who know that progress is not promised, but fought for. Our nation, as imperfect as it is, was brought into the modern world, the very concept of equality under the law. We were founded as a nation of laws, where each and every citizen would be protected by the law, but also would be subject to it, and that includes the President of the United States. And as we see efforts to change that noble history, it is incumbent upon all of us in this room, to step up and to speak out. The Constitution laid out clear guidelines on how to run our government, on how to protect our most basic rights, and on how to ensure against tyranny. Especially now, as we see the new administration in Washington on a literal rampage of lawlessness, cruelty, aggressiveness, and overt bigotry, reducing the depth and breadth of our federal government. Our standing across the globe has been diminished, and our economy is tanking right now. The purposeful destruction of our Constitution as we know it, with rapidity and intentionality. A nation whose very existence is predicated upon beliefs of checks and balances within our government. And yet we are seeing Republican members of Congress acquiesce, capitulate, bow down, cooperate, ignore their responsibilities and their duties. And typically this includes attacks on the concept of fairness and equality and living together and thriving in a pluralistic, multiracial democracy, one founded on respected diversity. Willful Republicans standing feckless, emancipated. The Trump administration.
I know, is it just me or is she starting to sound desperate, like a politician that's desperate, trying to throw everything out there that anything that would work? To me, she sounded desperate. She does sound like she's melting down a bit.
Civil rights gains at the United States Supreme Court, demanding states throughout this country erase our authentic experiences as Black Americans from school textbooks and from museums and cultural institutions all across this country. He issued an executive order ending 60 years of protection against racial discrimination in federal contracting and hired. In DOJ, he purged the database that tracked federal police misconduct, erasing the records of all police terminations, abuse, and civil rights violations. The administration announced recently that HUD, Housing and Urban Development, is cutting the program that fights home appraisal bias. The United States Department of Agriculture suspended the college scholarship.
A lot of the stuff that she was using to get rich.
And underserved backgrounds who attend HBCUs. The administration recently announced it will no longer require federal contractors to uphold government prohibitions against segregation in the workplace. And he's erasing the public display of Black war heroes in public places of honor and respect throughout our military. And you know, most recently, Donald Trump has dismantled the Department of Education, which protects all of our public school children, equal and civil rights, and so much more. And have we seen just yesterday and most recently the purging
which indoctrinates
of the federal
most of our
government,
kids
which disproportionately
and causes racism.
impacts Black women and women in particular. Cuts to Medicaid. The privatization of Social Security is coming. And last week, Trump announced the anticipated voter protection bill, the SAVE Act, which is nothing more than a voter suppression bill, risking the disenfranchise of millions of eligible citizens. And let's not forget the fear that's gripping immigrants who have fallen in my arms, afraid of going to school, going to work, going to church, going to court. And this chaos, this disruption.
They're afraid to go because of all the illegals,
deliberate.
all the illegals in there causing havoc. One of them got burnt to death in one of the subways, among other things, all the robberies and stabbings and everything. They're afraid of that.
It's an attempt to demoralize you and to wear you down. But all of us who believe in the promise of America, who want a society built on the rule of law and who are committed to equal justice, responsible for speaking out, resisting, and using every available tool at our disposal to protect our fragile democracy. And I can think of no better partner than with Nan and I in a coalition of attorneys general, 23 of us strong all across this nation. We've been working to fight and defend America's rights from the onslaught by the Trump administration, to oppose the manipulation and the reinterpretation of our laws and our Constitution, and we have been winning. We filed legal actions, lawsuits,
those in chat, I don't think this is gonna work really. Although the media is gonna try to find an incident, or they're gonna do a red flag or something to try to get the race relation things up there again. So, and try to get this in a jury, which it might happen in New York. I don't know if it has to happen there or not, because this is a federal charge, where they can get a jury very favorable to her, you know. What really has to happen is put some pressure on her, get some people to talk against her, and her to turn in some people above her, because I'm absolutely sure the Biden people were above it and kicking some money their way. You know, that they were flush with tons of our tax dollars and the NGOs and all that. The money of all the illegals coming in. They were trying to take down USA, and we saved it by a shoestring, at least for now.
Combat President Trump's illegal efforts, winning temporary restraining orders, preliminary injunctions, one after one after one, because we were ready. We anticipated this. And each and every day he files an illegal executive order, we strike back. And so as the Attorney General of this great state, I want you to know that we are prepared to battle to save our democracy, to not sit idly by while he ushers in a totalitarian form of government. Because democracy, my friends, requires courage. And courage runs through our DNA as a people. And we may
she's
encounter
big mad.
defeats, but we will not be defeated. So in the spirit of our ancestors, Harriet Tubman,
Big man, she got
Sojourner
caught.
Truth, Ida B. Wells, and Hazel Dukes, we will not bow, we will not break, and we will not bend. We will be fearless and fight on, because we are fighting a righteous and a noble cause, because fighting is part of our history. It's part of our story. And some of the strongest souls have emerged, seared with scars and bloody, but we still fight on.
I guarantee you she's going to, if it goes to trial, she's going to raise millions of dollars
in honor
to
of our
defend herself.
ancestors, in honor of all of their sacrifice. We've got to fight on. And all of the progress that we have made, we must fight on. Because I refuse to surrender my rights. Fight on. Because I've been trained by adversity and tried by fire. Because I'm from Brooklyn.
She's obviously reading.
Because I'm a part of a fellowship of fighters. Fight on, because I won't slow down. I won't back up. And you can rest assured that I won't shut up either. My mission is clear. She needs to shut up. I'm focused. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I've been trained by the best. I went to Howard University.
Oh, she's going to repeat this part.
That overturned legal segregation in this country. I've been taught in those classrooms where Thurgood Marshall once taught.
Now, all this she's saying, what does this have to do with her case of her cheating on all those loans and stuff like that, and saying her dad was her husband and all that? On 2 different occasions, she did that for money.
I'm not afraid of no president.
What does any of that have
Donald
to do
Trump,
with it?
we're ready for you. We're coming for you. We're standing up for you.
Money in the
We're
water.
fighting on. We're not going down silent. Victory, my friends, is clear. It's now. And I'm not waiting 4 years. I'm waiting 2 until a speaker by the name of Hakeem Jeffries comes to bring us some rest. Come on, ladies. It's up to us. We saved this
This is a campaign
before.
speech,
We'll
everyone.
save it now. Let's go.
Yelling louder really helps, right?
So, y'all, I'd like to know what y'all think. Now, I know in many of our previous videos, you all have said, look, again, she's dished it out. Now she's got to take it. She needs to go down. She needs to go to jail. But don't you think that might just perpetuate all of the back and forth? I mean, Donald Trump's going to be president for 4 years. What happens after that? You know,
they'll
he
come
won't- he
after him
might
either
not have the
way. I wouldn't.
protection of somebody who
I wouldn't
is the
let
head
up on
of
her.
the federal government.
If she
at that
broke the
point.
law,
You know
go
what I
after
mean?
her.
So for
Which
me,
she did.
I would just I wish both sides would just fall back and say, look, we're not going to lawfare each other to death. But I want to hear what y'all have to say. Leave a comment down below. But before you do, please stop, hit the share button.
Yep, I think she's in big trouble actually, and I don't think they're gonna let her go. Okay, I got one more. This is a real good one. This is about Letitia James and Pam Bondi back and forth with Elon Musk catching her in her lies. Watch this.
A large retail store just
this.
But the Attorney General of New York just swore
This is
on
really
paper
good,
that she lives in Virginia.
especially the latter
And the
part
woman
of it.
who actually lives there says she's never even seen her.
I agree.
That's not satire. That's the
Harris.
start of what might be the most deliciously ironic scandal of the year.
Yeah.
Late
myself.
last Thursday, a grainy but steady cell phone video quietly dropped on X, the kind of clip that usually drowns in the algorithm. But this one hit different. The footage? A man standing on a public sidewalk in Norfolk, Virginia, aiming his phone toward a modest two-story home with neatly trimmed hedges and a woman emerging from the front porch. "Hi, ma'am. I just have a quick question," the man begins. "Is this where Letitia James lives?" The woman doesn't flinch. "Number." "She doesn't live here," she replies flatly. "I'm the owner. Been here 10 years. No hesitation, no confusion, just a clear, unequivocal denial. At first, it smelled like a nothing burger, until it didn't. Because just hours later, that very house appeared in a legal document signed by none other than Letitia James herself, declaring her intention to claim it as her principal residence. That document, a specific power of attorney, dated August 17th, 2023, the legal equivalent of saying, "I swear under penalty of perjury, this is my main home." You don't need to be a mortgage lawyer or a congressional investigator to feel that burn. That's when the clip took off. Viral doesn't even begin to describe it. And then Elon Musk, who, let's be honest, doesn't tweet, he detonates, decided to quote repost the video with just 7 words that made every newsroom flinch. "Nice house for a NY Attorney General." 7 words. One viral mushroom cloud. Almost instantly, the digital sleuths got to work. Real estate databases were pulled. Tax records surfaced. And like any good political crime scene, it took less than 24 hours for the receipts to show up. Sitting right there in black and white legal ink, Letitia James's declaration that she intended to use that Virginia home as her primary residence. Now, for ordinary folks, that might just sound like bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo. But if you know how mortgage law works, and Letitia James should, since she's made a career out of prosecuting deceptive financial representations, then you know the stakes are far from academic. Claiming a property as your principal residence isn't just a checkbox on a form. It comes with financial perks, favorable mortgage rates, and even state-level tax exemptions. It's also a statement of legal fact. And when that statement contradicts reality, especially from a sitting attorney general, we're not talking about a clerical error. We're talking about a potential felony. She goes after people for misstating square footage. One conservative columnist tweeted, "Now we're supposed to believe she forgot where she lives." And here's the part that really stings. Letitia James built her brand, her career, on chasing down people who lie on financial documents. That's her whole shtick. Fraud? She practically trademarked the word. So what happens when the self-declared dragon slayer gets caught sharpening her own blade behind closed doors? That's the question now echoing through Capitol Hill. Within hours of the document leak, conservative lawmakers began demanding clarity. A few more hours later, and the House Judiciary Committee was in session, moving swiftly toward what would become one of the most politically volatile hearings of the year. Because this isn't just about a house in Virginia, it's about credibility, it's about hypocrisy. And in true American fashion, it's about who gets to lie and get away with it. So grab your seat, plug in your mic, and prep your popcorn, because the walls of righteousness may be lined with marble, but today they're shaking. The skies above Washington that morning were overcast, as if even the weather understood what was about to go down. The Capitol dome stood solemn and unmoved, until the cameras rolled and the oxygen level in the hearing room dropped 10 degrees. At precisely 9 a.m., the hearing began. This wasn't just another roundtable of grandstanding and recycled outrage. This was a federal scalpel being unsheathed, and sitting in the first chair on the right, uncuffed, unbothered, and unbought, was Elon Musk. Not the billionaire tech mogul, not the Twitter rebrander, not even the free speech absolutist. No, this was Elon Musk, special representative for federal judicial reform, handpicked by the administration to do what most bureaucrats couldn't: speak plainly in a town allergic to truth. And that's exactly what terrified them. Before a single word was spoken, the partisan fault lines were already visible. The left side of the dais bristled with performative skepticism, purses clutched, eyebrows arched. A few Democrat members whispered to aides, their eyes darting between Musk and the C-SPAN cameras. One congresswoman from California, let's call her a founding member of the Feelings Before Facts caucus, leaned into the mic with an exaggerated sigh. "Mr. Musk, we do hope this committee won't become a stage for political theater." To which Musk, without lifting his eyes from the file in front of him, replied dryly, "I'm sorry, Congresswoman. Did you want to borrow my spotlight?" Cue the audible gasp from the press gallery. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Coffee was set down with unintended loudness. Even the marble pillars seemed to lean in slightly. Musk continued, "I'm not here as a CEO. I'm not here as a partisan. I'm here because the federal justice system has been weaponized. And when the person holding the sword forgets they're also bound by law, it's time to ask who sharpened the blade." He paused. Let the silence breathe. Let them sit in it. Behind him, aides adjusted binders labeled Exhibit A through G. Journalists scribbled faster. The major outlets, the ones that hadn't covered the Letitia story yet, suddenly realized they might be 3 clicks away from irrelevance. Then came the name. Letitia James, Musk said, deliberate and calm. The Attorney General of New York. A woman who has spent years telling Americans that no one is above the law, while personally treating legal boundaries like mood lighting, useful when flattering, dispensable when inconvenient. That line hit harder than any opening statement from committee members. Some of them, particularly on the right, smirked knowingly. The left? Well, they shifted in their seats like school children caught copying each other's homework. Of course, the Democrats tried to push back. One attempted a procedural objection, muttering something about jurisdiction and the risk of politicizing oversight. "Mr. Chairman," she said, eyes barely meeting Musk's, "this witness is clearly here not to inform the committee, but to inflame it. If this hearing continues down this path, we risk setting a dangerous precedent, turning oversight into spectacle." Musk didn't even blink. He simply turned toward her and in that maddeningly calm voice that makes opponents sweat before he's even finished the sentence, replied, "Congresswoman, if truth feels like a spectacle to you, maybe the problem isn't the spotlight, it's what it's shining on." That line landed like a steel-toed boot on a marble floor. The room stiffened. The objection fizzled. The cameras zoomed in, not because anything procedural had happened, but because something undeniable had. Power had shifted. Because the room wasn't running on protocol anymore. It was running on blood in the water. And Musk smelled it. "This isn't about party," he said, turning toward the panel. "This is about a public official who claimed to be a watchdog while sneaking through the dog door, who swore she lived in Virginia while prosecuting others for falsifying residency claims. If the hypocrisy doesn't bother you, maybe the precedent should." By now, even the photographers had stopped clicking. It wasn't needed. Every frame of this scene was already etched into the country's memory. The chairman finally leaned forward, face unreadable, gavel resting lightly in his hand. "Today," he said, "we are not debating resumes. We are debating reality." Outside the building, protesters from both ends of the ideological spectrum had begun to gather. Some with signs saying no more double standards. Others with hands off Tish, because of course they were. Every scandal, after all, must come with its defense squad of professionally offended influencers. Inside, though, the mood was unmistakable. This wasn't going to be another round of headline flash and forget. This was about to be surgical. And Musk? He hadn't even opened Exhibit A yet. The gavel had barely settled when the room turned its gaze to the double doors. And just like a scripted entrance, except no one wrote this script but hubris, Letitia James walked in. She didn't rush. She didn't flinch. She glided forward with the poise of someone who still believed the title Attorney General could shield her from the gravity of evidence. Behind her, a battalion of suited advisors moved like shadows, papers in hand, earpieces buzzing, faces frozen in controlled panic. Musk didn't look up. He was already a few pages deep into Exhibit A. But the chairman noticed. "Ms. James, thank you for joining us. Please be seated. We were just getting started." The cameras swung, photographers clicked like it was a celebrity trial. And in a way it was, except the red carpet was federal, and the stakes weren't awards. They were prison terms. The chairman nodded toward Musk. "Proceed." Mr. Musk Elon stood, unfurled a single printed page, and held it in front of him, not for drama, but for clarity. "This is a specific power of attorney filed in Norfolk, Virginia, dated August 17, 2023. It contains the following language, quote, "I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence." He looked at Letitia. "Your signature appears at the bottom." Letitia didn't blink. She leaned into her microphone. "Before we begin any conclusions," she said, voice carefully measured, "I would like to clarify the context. This was a preliminary filing, part of an exploratory relocation process. No mortgage benefit was claimed, no deception intended. It was procedural." There was a pause, heavy, strategic. "Ms. James," Musk replied, tone deceptively casual, "in most states, especially Virginia, declaring principal residence is not just procedural. It's instrumental. That checkbox unlocks an entire suite of financial advantages, from tax abatements to homestead protections. And in this case, it appears to have been enough to begin mortgage eligibility discussions with favorable terms." He added, almost like an afterthought, "Is that also exploratory?" Letitia exhaled, her eyes flicking toward her legal counsel behind her. No one moved. "I believe that was a clerical oversight," she said, slower this time. "Nothing materialized from it." Musk arched an eyebrow, not smug, just surprised that this was the line they were going with. A low wave of murmurs rolled through the chamber. Reporters scribbled. Phones lit up under desks. On the left, a staffer whispered something to their representative. On the right, someone mouthed the word perjury. The chairman's gavel cracked against the block, once, hard. "Let's maintain order," he said, scanning the room. But order had already left the building, because a sitting attorney general had just walked into a hearing, admitted to signing a legal document under penalty of perjury, and called it a clerical error. Even marble knows when something doesn't add up. The chairman hadn't even lifted his gavel again when Musk, still standing, casually reached for the next tab in his binder. "Since we're on the subject of paperwork that somehow just happens without explanation," he said, "perhaps the committee would be interested in revisiting a document dated May 20th, 1983. He didn't wait for permission. The screen behind him flickered, and a scan of an old mortgage agreement filled the space. It looked like a relic. Yellowed text, typed in a font no longer used, but unmistakably official. "This," Musk began, "is a real estate loan agreement taken out for a modest property in Queens, New York. The borrowers, Robert James and a certain Letitia James, listed here, and I quote, as his wife." A sudden murmur passed through the chamber, like someone had opened a window in a locked room. Letitia's face remained still, but her fingers gripped the edge of the table ever so slightly. "Now," Musk continued, flipping to the next page, "here's the property deed, filed the same day. Same people, same address, except this time, Letitia is listed as his daughter." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The documents were doing the shouting for him. "So we're left with a choice," Musk said, pacing slightly. "Either the mortgage company made a colossal mistake, mislabeling a 24-year-old woman as her own mother, or someone wanted to qualify for a loan she otherwise wouldn't have gotten. Letitia finally spoke, her voice clipped, trying to maintain composure. That document is 4 decades old. Any errors in it were clearly the fault of the bank. I had no control over how they entered names into their system. Musk nodded slowly, almost like he appreciated the commitment to the bit. Interesting, because most 24-year-olds would at least notice being married to their father on a federal loan form, and if not then, perhaps, sometime over the last 40 years? No laughter this time, just sharp inhales and a room collectively holding its breath. Then came the interjection. From across the aisle, a congressman leaned forward, narrowing his eyes at Letitia. "Ms. James," he said sternly, "you're the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in your state. You built your career on accountability. Are you seriously telling us that for over 4 decades, you, someone with unparalleled legal access, never thought it appropriate to correct a legal document that falsely states you were married to your father?" Letitia hesitated. A beat. Then, "It was insignificant at the time." There it was. A sentence so casually dismissive, it might as well have been dipped in gasoline. Musk didn't miss the moment. "Insignificant," he repeated almost to himself. Then louder. "So a falsehood that could constitute mortgage fraud, if committed by any ordinary citizen, is, by your standard, insignificant." He turned back to the committee. "Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about an old form. It's about a pattern, a tolerance for minor legal deviations when they benefit you, and an iron fist when they don't." No one moved. Even the journalists had stopped typing. For a moment, even the buzz of fluorescent lights seemed to hush. This wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a legacy hemorrhaging credibility. And the scariest part? They hadn't even reached the newer files yet. The committee room had weathered a 40-year-old marriage certificate, but now it was about to meet the arithmetic of fraud. Musk remained on his feet, posture unshaken, voice gaining momentum. The kind of momentum that doesn't shout, but carries like a sermon carved into stone. He didn't need to pause for drama anymore. The facts were doing that for him. "Let's fast forward from the Reagan years to something a little closer to home," he said, flipping the tab marked Brooklyn Holdings. Behind him, the screen shifted again, this time to a crisp document labeled Certificate of Occupancy, January 26, 2001. It bore the seal of the City of New York and the unmistakable classification, 5-unit residential building. "Ladies and gentlemen," Musk began, his voice a blend of clarity and disdain, "this is a property owned by Ms. James since 2001, a 5-unit apartment building in Brooklyn. 5 units, not 4, not around 4, not 4-ish, but 5. A number famously located between 4 and 6. Hard to confuse, even for politicians." A few on the panel chuckled, not out of amusement, but recognition. The kind of uncomfortable smile you wear when someone says what everyone was thinking. "And yet," Musk continued, holding up a stack of paperwork like it weighed more than just pages, "in every single mortgage application since 2001 through 2005, 2011, Ms. James declared this property as having 4 units. He let that hang in the air, just perfectly suspended like the final note of a requiem. "Why 4?" he asked. "Because 4 is the golden number. At 4 units, you're still eligible for owner-occupied loans. You qualify for favorable rates, lower down payments, even access to HAMP, the Home Affordable Modification Program. But at 5, he snapped his fingers, "you're out. You're classified as commercial. No homeowner help, no bailout, just full freight." Letitia shifted slightly. She was no longer seated with her shoulders back. Her arms were crossed, not defensively, but calculatingly, like someone counting how many exits were still open. The chairman gestured for her response. Letitia leaned into the mic. Her voice for once didn't command. It explained. "I lived in that building. I occupied one of the units. To my understanding, I believed it was categorized as a 4-unit at the time." Musk didn't interrupt. He simply turned to the screen again. A new window popped up. An archived 2007 interview from The Real Deal, a New York property magazine. Letitia Younger, beaming in a pinstripe blazer, speaking to a reporter. "It's a great investment property. I rent out all the units. It basically pays for itself." Silence, no murmurs, no coughs, just the raw stillness that comes when illusion finally collides with admission. Musk looked back at her. "So which is it, Ms. James?" he asked. "Do you live there, or does it pay for itself?" He pivoted to the panel. "Because unless she's renting out herself, both can't be true." A camera shutter clicked twice. No one looked at the press table anymore. They were all locked on the stage. "This isn't a math error," Musk declared. "It's a strategy built on selective truth and legal convenience. It's not a lie if it's barely untrue until someone reads the fine print, until someone keeps receipts." He gestured at the now crowded evidence table. "And today we brought receipts, with numbers that don't lie, even when people do." Letitia sat still. Her fingers no longer touched the microphone. The clouds had returned, this time not in the sky, but inside the chamber. And if the 5 units were 4 bombshell rattled the windows, what came next would shake the foundation. Musk stepped forward, slower now, almost casually, as if offering the room a breather. But seasoned eyes knew better. He was just loading the next chamber. "Let's step back," he began, voice cooled but deliberate. "From bricks and deeds to something far more fluid, money. Specifically the kind that flows quietly, behind curtains stitched by tax codes and think tanks." He tapped his tablet. The screen behind him flickered to life with a sprawling network diagram, dots and lines connecting organizations with precision. At the center, Tide Center, Fair and Just Prosecution, and Open Society Foundations. The web glowed red. "These aren't conspiracy boards," Musk said, anticipating the objection. "They're funding disclosures, public records, verified transfers." The next slide, a USAID report. $27 million in federal grants routed to nonprofits connected to progressive prosecutors, including those tied to Letitia James. "Now, I don't have a problem with philanthropy," Musk continued, "but I do take issue with justice being crowdfunded by ideology. Because when your prosecutor's salary is paid by taxpayers, but your loyalty is underwritten by Soros-backed intermediaries, you don't serve the law, you serve the donor." From the Democrat side of the dais came a stiff rebuttal. A congresswoman, voice firm but already defensive. "Mr. Musk, are you implying that any prosecutor who receives nonprofit support is compromised?" Musk didn't blink. "No, ma'am. I'm saying that when a pattern emerges, where funding, political targets, and prosecutorial decisions consistently align with one ideology, then we're not looking at a coincidence. We're looking at strategy. And if your defense is that it's all just a coincidence, then it's the most consistent one in modern legal history." The screen flipped again, this time a still image from a judicial reform conference. Letitia James and Alvin Bragg smiling on stage, seated under a banner emblazoned with logos of 3 of the very same funders Musk had just named. "Convenient," Musk murmured, almost to himself. Then louder for the record, "When the prosecutors, the policy, and the purse all share the same logo, are we still pretending this is justice? Or is it just branding with subpoenas?" The Republican side stirred. One congressman leaned forward. "Is this a nationwide coordination network of handpicked prosecutors? Or a protection racket with an HR department?" Letitia finally cut in, tone sharp. "This is absurd. This is right-wing fantasy. A tinfoil narrative cooked up by billionaires with grudges. There is zero evidence of any wrongdoing tied to these groups." Musk smiled, not smug, not sarcastic, just calm. "I didn't accuse you of anything," he said. "I just showed you the receipts, whether that's evidence of coordination or coincidence. I leave that to the people watching." The tension didn't drop. It hardened. And that's when he went in for the kill. "Since we're on the topic of patterns," Musk said, turning back to his exhibit table, "why don't we look at the full mortgage record of Ms. James?" A new screen appeared, a color-coded timeline from 2001 to 2018. Every loan, refinance, and filing related to Letitia's Brooklyn property lined up in neat, damning symmetry. "Here's what's fascinating," he said. "Every single document, regardless of year, lender, or application, claims 4 units. Every single. One click, another slide. The certificate of occupancy, unchanged since 2001, 5 units. If this were a clerical error, it would be a one-off. If this were ignorance, it would be corrected once discovered. But when the same discrepancy appears in 2001, 2005, 2011, 2014, and 2018, that's not a typo. He pointed at the board. That's a business model. Letitia leaned back. Her legal counsel whispered something into her ear. She waved them off. These were mistakes by loan processors, she said flatly. I filled out what I was told to. A soft snort came from a junior member of the Republican side. The chairman didn't stop it. A senior committee member, gray hair, military cut, interjected. Ms. James, with all due respect, you are the Attorney General of the state of New York. If you can't distinguish between a 4-unit and 5-unit building for 17 years straight, you might not be qualified to prosecute jaywalking, let alone financial fraud. The room didn't laugh. It bristled. Because now it wasn't just about Letitia James. It was about the credibility of an entire legal ecosystem. And when credibility goes, authority isn't far behind. At that moment, Letitia reached forward and turned off her microphone. She wasn't done speaking. But from this point on, she wasn't speaking to the public anymore. She had switched to lawyer mode because things had shifted from questionable to criminally calculable. Just as the oxygen in the room seemed to be replaced by legal tension, the chairman leaned into his mic and, with a perfectly neutral tone that screamed something was coming, addressed the floor. Before we proceed, the committee has received additional documentation from a parallel source. We believe it is relevant to today's hearing. Cue the pivot. Enter Congressman Jim Jordan, sleeves already rolled up like always, a man whose rhetorical style combines courtroom cross-examination with Friday night wrestling promos. He stood slowly, adjusted his mic like a trigger, and said, "For the record, Mr. Chairman, this committee has been in possession of a private investigative report commissioned by a third-party watchdog received approximately 6 months ago. It includes recordings, internal communications, and flagged financial irregularities directly related to the subject of this hearing." He turned toward Letitia. That subject being you, Ms. James. Letitia sat motionless, perhaps by choice, perhaps by instinct. The group responsible for this investigation, Jim Jordan continued, has chosen to remain anonymous in public filings. However, we are now authorized to disclose that the funding came in full from a private civic reform initiative, led by Mr. Elon Musk's silence. But not the kind that floats. This was the kind that grinds. The screen behind the committee burst into motion again. Grainy footage from what appeared to be a staff kitchen, badly lit, but crystal clear in implication. A woman's voice, tired, casual, like someone venting after too many late nights. She told us flat out, just write 4. Don't mention the 5th unit. The fewer questions, the faster it closes. A pause. I mean, that's how it's always been done here. Letitia didn't move at first. Then suddenly she stood, slammed both palms on the table, and spat the words like a lawsuit in the making. I object to this footage. It's illegally obtained, and this committee has no business airing surveillance material without proper chain of custody. The chairman didn't flinch. His tone didn't change. He didn't even lift his eyes. You may register your objection, Ms. James, but as long as this content holds investigatory value, the committee reserves the right to view it. Letitia froze for half a beat, then slowly sank back into her chair. Mechanical, but not quite defeated. Her counsel leaned in, slid a single note across the table. She read it. And then came that quiet instruction, barely a whisper. Stay quiet. From now on, you don't talk. Because even in politics, there's a moment when the spin dies, the comms team stops tweeting, and the only thing left is the timestamp on the footage and the name on the filing. And here's the punchline. It wasn't even the most damning part. The second exhibit, a stack of flagged emails and internal memos, time-stamped around key refinancing dates, showing deliberate scheduling of mortgage filings during off-peak audit windows. Week before Christmas, mid-August recess, even one on New Year's Eve. That's not mismanagement, Jordan quipped. That's tactical evasion with a calendar subscription. The reporters in the gallery weren't scribbling anymore. They were watching, eyes narrowed, lips pursed, because now it wasn't just about documents. It was about intention. It was about calculated silence. And it was about who knew and who didn't want to know. At the far end of the room, Musk didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His eyes locked on Letitia's, not cruel, not smug, but piercing. The kind of look that says, I didn't need to destroy you. You did that part yourself. The video had only been live for 43 minutes. That was all it took. By then, Letitia Lied had rocketed to the top of X. Screens across the country lit up. Cable panels scrambled for new Chirons. Attorney General under fire didn't quite do it anymore. They needed something stronger, something like Queen of Law caught in her own legal trap. By noon, a handful of Democratic lawmakers, mostly moderates with re-election fears and barely their poll leads, began issuing carefully curated statements. Given recent developments, we believe it is in the best interest of justice for Attorney General James to step aside until the facts are fully assessed. Translated from politician speak, we're out. Letitia's office responded with a press release so sterile, it might as well have been generated by ChatGPT's damage control mode. In light of the recent hearings, Attorney General James will temporarily recuse herself from her duties while fully cooperating with all relevant authorities. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice didn't wait for a press cycle to cool down. They launched a preliminary investigation within 72 hours, a record considering it once took them 6 weeks to acknowledge Hunter Biden had a laptop. The fallout metastasized. A petition began circulating, gathering hundreds of thousands of signatures in under 48 hours, urging Elon Musk to co-author a federal transparency reform act. Twitter renamed it the Elon Clause. Congress took it more seriously than usual, probably because someone had already mocked up merch. 3 days post-hearing, the guillotine came for real. The Federal Department of Justice formally opened a criminal inquiry. Focus: fraudulent mortgage filings, misrepresentation of ownership, and improper access to homeowner assistance programs. The acronyms on the official form read like a bingo card: HAMP, HOOD, IRS, FCRA. The New York State Judicial Ethics Board followed suit, suspending Letitia's law license and freezing her prosecutorial authority for 6 months pending investigation. Her office? Temporarily handed to a deputy attorney general. Oversight? Assumed by a third-party monitor. Control? Slipped through her hands faster than the narrative on MSNBC. Then came the governor, who, let's be honest, hadn't smiled this sincerely since discovering term limits didn't apply retroactively. In a surprise press conference, he announced the formation of an independent review commission tasked with re-examining 20 years of mortgage-related prosecutions carried out by the AG's office. Translation: if you locked up a landlord with sloppy paperwork in 2007, they're about to lawyer up. Journalists, once her armor, began peeling away like paint in summer heat. Those who once praised her for standing up to Trump now wondered aloud, had she weaponized justice to distract from her own paper trail? And then came the class action lawsuit, a team of former defendants, all previously prosecuted by Letitia's office for real estate violations, now suing her in federal court under grounds of ethical disqualification and malicious prosecution. A camera crew caught the moment federal agents arrived at Letitia's townhouse, escorted by judicial marshals, armed with a warrant to seize personal files and digital devices. CNN called it reverse Mar-a-Lago. The memes wrote themselves. Her final public appearance came under soft lighting and rehearsed regret. Letitia sat before a single camera, framed by neutrality. No podium, no flags, no seal. Just a woman with a microphone and a past unraveling on prime time. I once believed justice was a double-edged sword, she said, voice cracking in the right places. I never thought I'd be cut by the blade I carried. It would have been moving if it weren't delivered by someone who'd spent a decade wielding that blade like a status symbol. The studio lights dimmed. The set fell into darkness. The screen didn't fade. It just stopped. As if the signal itself had said, that's enough. Across town, Elon Musk walked alone through the marble corridors of the Capitol, hands in his coat pockets, not a camera in sight, until one ambitious intern with a mic chased him down. Mr. Musk, do you believe this will fix the system? He didn't stop walking. Not enough, he said, but it's a start. The camera lingered on his back as he disappeared into shadow. The system hadn't been saved. But for once, it had been cracked open. And sometimes that's all revolutions need. Not a hero, just a beginning.
I agree with all that. Yeah, I think she's in big trouble. You know, I don't think she can get out of this one. I don't know. She's going to raise a lot of money out of this, and she definitely knows how to get on a mic and scream racism. That's all how she got in power anyways to start with. Hopefully you enjoyed all this. I didn't know which ones to throw out. So I decided to play them all, a lot of the good ones I had there. So, all right. Hopefully you enjoy it. I don't think I'm going to be on tomorrow because we got to go up to Buffalo for a while. I don't think I'm going to get back in time. I wanted to do something on J6, so I'm probably going to do it on the next day, somewhere probably around 5 p.m. I'll post something if it's going to be earlier than that, you know, probably around 5. All right, take care. God bless everyone. Watch Rebel Chicks and then Country Conservative after that, coming on at 7 and 9. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. God bless.